All right, looks like I am live. No pre-stream screening or anything. So we're just gonna jump straight into it. Let me actually get the thing. Yeah. Yeah. Just got home. Sorry, guys. I'm rushing. I'm rushing to get this going. Okay. Turn the music off real quick, so I can have YouTube in there. Yeah, go with the sub. Appreciate you. Also need to get up into. Hold on. All right, it's capture. So capture here. What is it? Got it. And there we go. All right. Gotta make sure that YouTube can hear it too. Give me a sec. What up? Let's see.
Got a Twitch drop this stream. So
There
if
we
you
go.
have Twitch drops enabled on your account and you're watching
Alright,
on
so
Twitch,
YouTube should be able to hear
you'll be
now.
able to snag the Lacunize Pupil two-handed Sork staff. And the really
And
exciting
let me
part
get
about this
Discord real quick.
staff is that it's got a nice crystal kitty on the end. So if you're a big cat fan like myself,
See.
you
Can
can
you guys
watch
hear me?
this stream or any other eligible stream in the Diablo 4 category for 30 minutes, and you'll be able to claim
my stream
that.
basically.
We
By the
do
way,
have some
just saying.
FAQs for Twitch drops on our blog that announce the stream. So if you're having any issues, go and check it out. And no, you cannot watch the stream muted. You have to have us unmuted and listen to our beautiful voices to collect that stuff. So enjoy. To give you a little overview of the stream, it's been a while since we chatted since the Season 9 PTR. We're going to give you a bit of a refresher on the overview. What does Sins of the Horadrim bring? We're going to go through some class balance updates, some PTR changes, and then we're going to get into some Q&A towards the end of the stream.
No idea how to do it.
In terms of what questions we're kind of looking for the Q&A section, you know, something like what are the goals of seasonal class updates is a great question. Anything that's really speaking broadly to like the why of how we do things. You know, if you want the nitty-gritty changes, you can go check it out in the patch notes. But we're looking for, you know, nice and broad questions. I asked Dan what kind of question he might want to hear from chat, and he said, you know, do they prefer affix or affix? So, you know, some other things to chew on for that. But yeah, stick around towards the end of the stream. The community team will be grabbing your questions, and we'll look forward to answering those.
Absolutely.
So yeah, but without further ado, Sins of the Horadrim, they've been sinning. How have they sinned? We're going to find out. Dan Tangway is going to walk us through everything coming with the season and tell us what the Horadrim have been up to and why are we dealing with their past choices.
Hello?
Yeah, let's do that. So,
okay.
graphic here. And this graphic.
Do we need to do anything else, or are we good?
Be pretty familiar to a lot of you, but that's going to cover
we can
all of
watch
what
on
Season
your
9
stream.
contains.
Okay.
Or individually.
It is a lot. So, Season
watching on
9,
YouTube
Sins
right
of
now.
the Horadrim.
I
First
just got
off,
home, so I'm
you're
like,
going to get a new quest line.
just like rushing to
Seasonal
get
quest
everything.
line. I'm going to go over
They're just gonna recap a bunch of stuff.
premise
I'm
behind
not
that,
missing anything.
after I
figured.
get through this massive list of things.
So can
Next
stream
up,
hear us?
seasonal content. So, as you saw in the PTR, we've got Horadric Spellcraft, and we've got Horadric Jewels. Both of those
I forgot
systems are
my
pretty deep.
copium juice
I'm going to kick
downstairs.
it over to Aislinn after I'm done to chat through those. We also have a new season journey pet named Dante. He's a good dog, but he certainly doesn't look good. But he'll be available, as will new reliquary rewards, which I feel are pretty self-explanatory. But then we're really excited to bring to you some permanent updates to the game as well. This is something we've heard a lot of feedback from y'all on,
Permanent
and we
updates
want to
are
make
nice.
sure that we were delivering it moving forward. And that's making sure that whenever we make updates to major
I tried to
systems, that
see
those
what
updates
you were watching,
appear both the
and I got hit
seasonal
by a 30-second
and the
ad,
eternal
like,
realms.
mother-
Sometimes we'll call this evergreen, but
I shouldn't have
at
any
rate,
pre-rolls
a
at all.
lot of updates to
Shouldn't
Nightmare
happen.
Dungeons that apply to both realms.
Got a
Maybe
sub,
just
Beva.
We're going to talk a bit about
Uh,
Horadric
Yeah,
Strongroom.
yeah.
We're going to talk a bit
my
about
wife's mom was
escalating
calling me.
nightmares and some new nightmare dungeon affixes as
Maybe
well.
she's watching too.
And of course, we will talk about the
she's there to scold
Astaroth
me.
boss battle. Now, finally, we've got a lot of new loot and class updates that are coming to Season 9. That's something that Charles is much better suited to cover than I am. So we'll kick
I'm
it over to
hoping that
him.
I will
and
feel
we'll probably
excited
finish
about
up
the
with some
Nightmare
quality
Dungeon
of life
stuff
updates. So
after this.
let's jump into story. Let's see.
Wait,
I think we
you're
got a
telling me
graphic.
you're not the paid actor?
Yes, we're going to start with Astaroth. So,
No, unfortunately.
for those of you who remember, Astaroth is somebody we have faced down before in Diablo 4, but he's got a bit of a backstory that's pretty important to Season 9. So Astaroth is the Charred Duke. He's the guardian of the Cathedral of Hatred. He serves Mephisto.
That's actually my wife.
Not sure entirely how, but somehow
She
he
lost her
escapes
phone
hell,
apparently.
and he starts
Oh, no.
laying waste.
But she's at the wedding that I
Wants
was
to
supposed to
make
be
it
at
his own
today.
Oh,
private hell.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now clearly, you know, the Druids of Scotland will not put up for that. And so they partner up
Wait, you can stream
with a
heroes now?
Herodric mage
Pecha?
named
Do you hear me?
Donan,
1, 2, 3.
which we will see in our next slide
Keep
here.
it
Now
coming.
Donan, here he is with those Herodric mages.
What up,
or
Pecha?
rather, with those
Machine said they
druids.
reached
He's
out.
the mage.
They reached out to him
Ah,
about
you can hear me,
They
man.
band
about his
together
quirks and
ultimately
you know what's
defeat
funny?
Astaroth. Now,
Mazda did
sort
that
of,
in the recent. Believe it or not.
much as what happens with powerful demons,
'Cause I
Donan
bought a new
decides
car
to trap Astaroth in the
September
Soul
last
Stone
year, so I'm
and
like actually
buries
getting
that
like
Soul Stone
warranty
deep
extensions
inside
coming
the earth.
straight from them.
And as we all know, soul stones are ticking time bombs.
Decoy, what's up, man?
And so by the start of Diablo 4,
Ready
that
for
is
powers.
the situation we're looking at. Needless to say, Astaroth escapes. We defeat Astaroth as the Wanderer. Donan suffers
why
some
this
pretty
lore thing is
tragic
happening?
losses, including his life.
And
so
why
in
is it not a
Season 9,
pre-made video?
Yeah.
this is
You
our
know what we
starting
need
point.
to do, Dai?
And
We need to get all of Maxwell on
there's
board with
something
this.
else going
Ready?
on. Something else is stirring in
We
Scotland.
need to
Ready?
go collect ears
And it's
again.
up
We
to
need to
us
get
to
everyone
discover
on
what's
board
going
and
on.
go
So,
PvP, all of us.
we are going to
tournament
partner
again.
up with Briona.
I didn't get a chance to play that day, but
We've
yeah,
got a
I heard it
photo-
was fun.
photo. Image of
I heard it was a
Briona
lot of
with
fun.
us now.
I've never had so many
Briona is a
British
druid.
ears in my
She's
inventory.
got some history with
As I did during
Donan.
that weekend.
She doesn't particularly like him, and so you'll learn more about why that is as you're traveling with her. And
It
your
was just a
first stop on
blast,
your
you know,
travels
hanging out
is
with
up
boys,
to Eldheim
like
Keep,
everyone get involved.
where there's been a lot of demon activity, and you need to save some
What was that?
villagers.
What was that?
around while
What was
running
that
away
doing?
We're
from
gonna make
Panda.
some pretty
What was that
important
doing that
discoveries
day?
for this
It
season.
wasn't it a Saturday or
I think we have
Sunday?
some
I
footage of
think it
that.
was like
Sunday.
yeah.
So up in
where
Eldheim
was
Keep,
I?
you're going to be entering the keep,
This was
and
fall,
on the
right?
floor where there's some demons fighting over it, you're
Oh,
going to
dude,
see
I have
what is
I have
known
no
as a
recollection of
Herodric
when this was.
Wayfinder.
Because usually the
It-
fall
it
is like
way
really,
probably was
Wayfinder
fall, yeah.
yeah.
is,
Fall was like
pretty
my
special.
busiest season because
It's
I have
going to
like
help
marching band
you
competitions and stuff on
figure
weekends.
out where there
Oh,
are
yeah, true.
Herodric
That's what- yeah.
secrets buried deep within Nightmare Dungeons, and it's going to tug you in those
I mean, events like
directions
that
and
is
provide
really
you
fun.
clues and hints.
Like if we can get
So
like
we'll see a
10
little bit
people
of that
and
in
just do
action
free
right
for all.
now.
Ooh, that was fun. Like everyone leveling together, just going crazy.
Now, as
really-
you get
they
closer,
really gotta stop showing, like,
a Herodric
hard
totem
ge-
is going to
Or
reveal
sorry,
itself, a
hard
gateway.
difficulty
And
gameplay.
upon clicking it, you've
for
got to
these
fight
things,
a couple
man.
of enemies that are guarding it. But ultimately,
know
you're going
it's
to discover
bad when
that
creep,
it opens a portal
Poison
to
Creeper one shots everything
unknown
on
part
activation.
of this
You know,
particular
you're a
dungeon.
little bit,
Yeah, it's like
a little bit of a
So
low
once we're
difficulty.
defeating
it's like
these
tutorial
enemies, we'll see
videos,
the
right?
portal,
Like, you know,
and
like
then we're gonna
pre-tutorial
jump right through.
videos. Like how to play, yeah, kind of thing. Like that's what these videos look like. Like when they do this. Like the game's been out for how long now? Like they could show
And so
some
now
actual
we're
like.
inside what is known as a Herodric
Okay,
strong room.
we're in Torment 3. Okay.
Now,
Okay.
first up, you're going to learn a little bit of the Herodric strong room mechanics. We've got a pillar here, and this pillar is going to help you gain more of what is known as attunement. And
Wait,
attunement
who uses
is
blade
the
storm on
score
Mariana,
essentially
though?
for the strong room.
Hello?
And as you gather more, it's going to boost your rewards. But before you get into the actual strong room, you've got to choose what kind of test you want to take. And in fact, you can choose up to 3 tests. These tests are going to modify the strong room in some way, whether boosting attunement or giving you swiftness or varying up how the shrines behave in the strong room. So we're going to pick 3 here, and that will modify our run coming up. So we're going to jump in, and now we've got a timer. timer in which to kill as many enemies as we can to prove our might to the
You know,
Rod
the
Drum.
strongholds are actually kind
And
of
so
fun.
you see we're playing around that pillar again. It flashed, which means we got the
I'm
bonus.
hoping they got a
and
bit
now any of
juiced
the enemies we
since the
kill at this
PTR.
point will
Yeah,
give us
I mean, I'm
additional
guessing
attunement.
like just the
And
idea of it
notice
is
on the
actually
side, the UI, we've
kinda
got
fun.
a great new UI here
Yeah.
now. There are 6 levels of attunement that you can achieve,
A great
and
new
each of those
UI. I
increases
mean,
the amount of rewards
you
that you get at the
reused.
end. So
Literally
obviously, you're
reuse the,
trying
assets.
to not only kill as many
reuse
enemies as
the
possible,
what was
but
it, the
maximize that
Infernal Horde
attunement through
boom
clever
stuff. You
use
reuse
of
the
those
Undercity
pillars we mentioned before,
um,
shrines,
Timer,
chests you
Timer,
selected at the
yeah.
beginning, and so
things,
forth.
yeah.
Now, at the end, you're going to fight a boss. In this case, we're fighting the Pyroclast. And that's just a final skill check before we spawned the Grand Heraldric Cache. The Grand Heraldric Cache has a lot of cool legendaries, and it also has a buff on it that will encourage you to
It's
finish the rest of that Nightmare Dungeon.
Tier
But
4,
also
Torment 3.
importantly for our conversation,
Oof.
it's going to have something else. And that something else is an
Hey, it's
escalation
better than
sigil,
hard
which you'll see
difficulty.
in your inventory here. Now, this escalation sigil is
I guess you
important
really
because
can't
this
do
is the
this
other
on-
big gameplay system that we've introduced permanently for Season 9. So, let's talk about the
I
escalation
like it when I see
escalation
materials
sigil
as
for
a
bit.
reward.
Now,
That's
this
always
is
my
going to
fear, is
spawn
to
a
run out
series of
of stuff.
dungeons. And at the end of that series of
That's
dungeons
true.
will be a boss if you're in the Torment tiers. So let's talk a little bit about the affixes because we've done a lot of work on those. You see our starting affixes here. You get 1 positive and 1 negative. Now the positive one is Equipment Delve. This is going to give you better loot drops as you go through.
Make it the
We've
name Dell
also got
from-
Hunters. Hunters is a new affix, probably a little refurbished. I forget what it was
I
called
don't know.
before. But this increases the
It's
monster
pretty far
speed
down in dictionary, you
of
know.
traversal
You just
and
open a
of
dictionary, it's
attack
like, oh yeah,
against you.
delve.
So
That sounds
that's
like a
not going
great
to be
word to
too
use.
fun. Now, when you get to the end of that dungeon, because I believe in you, you guys can get to the end of that dungeon. In addition to Equipment Delve and Hunters, you're going to get Forgotten Wisdom and Waller Elites. Now, Waller Elites we all know and probably hate. I don't like them that much. Forgotten Wisdom is actually going to spawn XP wells around the dungeons, so you get an extra boost of XP as you're going through the dungeon and complete your runs. So let's see the escalating nightmares in all their glory. So this is a new run here. This one actually, we've got Heraldric Bestiary, which is going to boost the amount of rep that you get for this particular run. And it's also got Khazra Hordes. Now, Khazra Hordes is actually modifying the enemies in this case. There's a lot more Khazra. They've taken this up as their home, and they're a lot more powerful in this dungeon. And so you,
This
of
is
course,
Forsaken
defeat
Quarry.
the
That's
Khazra
the
Abomination at the end.
rogue
And note
class
that we've
quest.
spawned
Have you guys
a
done
portal.
that since
So
we
you
don't need to
go
do it
back
anymore?
to town.
No.
Like,
You
is
don't
the
need to go
reward
into your
good?
inventory to continue to
I've
run.
not
You can
done
just
it
continue
since
it from right here.
2005.
And when you click on
By
it,
the
you see
time
what
that
you're
it
going to
makes
get
sense
next.
to do it, you
So
no
we're going
longer
to jump
really
right
need
in
it.
and load up the next dungeon
And
here.
that's
And
what
as
it
we
is.
jump in,
Because they said it would be like
we're going
good
to
clash
find,
rewards and
if
stuff,
we were reading
still
the
like
thing before,
maybe
that
worthwhile.
there's actually a
The
guaranteed
time it takes to
strong
do
room
that
in
is
this dungeon. So that's
is
pretty
not
cool.
worth the detour.
And that's going to give us a
honestly.
chance
The reward
to
isn't bad,
actually
it's
double
just
dip
not
on
worth the detour to
rewards.
do it.
And so you're going to find a lot of interesting combinations to really make these escalation sigils as efficient as possible. But ultimately, you get through your run, and you're going to be able to fight Astaroth, especially
I do
since
like this
we're
boss,
in
though.
Torment 3. So here
As
is
a boss,
the
like
Looks
clip
pretty
of
good.
the
in a
Astaroth
bubble.
fight. Now,
I'll put it that way.
when we were looking at Astaroth,
Boss in
we
a
thought to
bubble.
ourselves, well,
Yeah.
It's like a little-
we're having a
Well, because
rematch. Obviously,
I mean, you
can't
know,
do the
like
same
design
fight,
wise,
but
right? Like,
since
you know,
it's a
whether,
rematch,
yeah,
we
that's what
wanted
I
to
mean.
look at elements of the previous fight.
I just imagine like,
so,
one of those
the
snow
fight
globes.
starts
It's like,
with
oh, if we could have
Astaroth,
astronauts in a
astride
fucking
his
snow
mount,
globe.
and all of this part of the
Great.
fight should be pretty familiar to you at this point. But then we
thinking
want to
about
start
it, you
changing it
know.
up. And what better way to really create the feeling of a rematch is now that you get to fight Astaroth one-on-one. But, you know, even though the Amalgam is down, he's not out this time. And so the Amalgam is sitting in a pool regenerating, creating a hazard that you need to manage, while you also need to fight Astaroth. Of course, he can cheat and walk through the pool, but you can't.
I mean,
and so that's how the phases will
nothing
escalate for Astaroth. And
at this
within
guy
the
at all whatsoever.
escalation,
I'm pretty sure
sigil
I'm
of
terrible
Ursh
at
and
presentations
Bastroth,
too as well.
You even get new affixes
But it's like
and things like that that modify the
when
fight
talking
even
about
further.
seasonal stuff like
So
this,
we really tried
like,
to make this kind of a
I
unique
really feel
twist
like
on
they
a
need
boss fight,
like
something that you
someone
haven't seen
else
before.
that has a little bit
And
more
with that, I
like,
think I am
oomph.
done.
Ex-
covering
yeah,
the Nightmare Dungeon
yeah, you know
section
what I
of
mean? Like,
this,
I mean, he's
update.
doing,
I'm
yeah, I
gonna
mean,
kick
he's
it
doing what
over
he needs to do. He's supposed to do.
Acelin.
And I get that.
And Acelin
But not
is
everybody's
go
gonna,
pretty deep into
know,
spellcraft and
be able to,
jewels.
you know, have
Yeah,
that
absolutely.
presence in
Thank
front
you
of a
so much,
camera
Dan.
to make
and
this
I'm so
interesting.
excited to go into those Nightmare
Like, I'm pretty
Dungeons,
sure
those strong
they could have,
rooms,
if they would have had
and especially
anyone, not anyone else, but like someone else with
dungeons,
more,
because
you
it's gonna be
know,
a freaking huge
charisma,
burst of
like
rewards.
all
It's
that
gonna be
could
great.
sound a lot more
It's gonna
exciting.
be hard
Right?
too. Those wall releases.
But the way that
are gonna be
he
painful.
presents it
Yeah,
makes it
especially
sound
when
like
the
it's a
affix
drag,
stack
like he
run over run
was like,
throughout the escalating
you know,
nightmares.
unfortunate to work on all this. You know what I
It
mean?
can
Like
get
that's what
very
it sounds like to
Exactly.
me.
Very
And like that,
Yeah, I
Yeah.
My
agree.
mandatory
Now,
service.
these are going
Right.
to present their
For
own
the
sets of
podcast,
challenges.
yeah.
So of course we need to utilize the Herodrum's power
There's
in
no
order
vocal
to overcome
variety
those
or
challenges.
passion
so
or
with season 9,
Right,
we
and
have
so-
pace or
Herodric's
volume.
spellcraft.
It's very.
So there's
Yeah,
a lot
so
of
by-
listen to it in
components
2x
to
speed and
Herodric's
it's still
spellcraft.
like
So we're going to go
not
over a quick overview
fast
and then
enough.
dive a little
yeah.
deeper
So
into
so
how
by the time we
exactly
get
it
here,
works.
we're already kind of
There are
bored.
3
Even
different
like even
moves that
even if the
comprise the
information was
entirety
good,
of
like
your
even if the
Herodric
information was
spell.
actually
You're
good,
gonna be
we're still
crafting a
bored
Herodric
because it was
spell in season
presented
9.
in such
You're
a
going to need a catalyst.
bland way.
The
You know what I
catalyst
mean?
is effectively the
Yeah,
core of the spell.
100%.
It tells the spell that it's going to be a celestial storm of stars, or it's going to be a beam of arcane energy that disintegrates your foe.
I actually
Yeah.
wonder if he
And
actually
then
wants to do it.
secondarily,
Like I
that
mean, I wonder if they
catalyst
just
will
say, hey, you know,
provide
you
damage
worked
type.
on this, you talk
So you
about it.
need
And
to
he's like, dang
infuse
it.
with one of
I
5
really don't want to
different
be in front of the
elemental
camera.
damage types.
But
These can, you know, can be
It's
fire,
also about like
lightning,
we obviously don't know a lot of
frost,
what's going on
and
behind the
poison,
scenes
and
when it comes
I'm
to
not
how
gonna remember
constrained they
the
need to
last
be
one.
and how
And,
you know like that sort of stuff as
yeah,
well.
so that
Right.
determines
So
the
I'm kind
elemental
of
damage
worried,
type of
like
the
not
spell,
worried, but I'm
and it
kind of
also
curious
gives it
if
some nifty extra
they're
effects
even
too.
allowed to be like,
And then
guys, so
finally,
let's
there's
do this. You know, we're gonna be
Arcana,
doing,
which are
you know,
just,
bringing
extra
that sort of
bits and
energy
baubles
to
you
it.
can add to
But-
And if that would be
further
fake,
into
like feel
customization.
fake in the same.
So like you could
Who was
probably
it?
imagine,
Who was it that came back
this
to
is
Blizzard
the
for
build your own
World of
spell,
Warcraft? Was it Mike?
kind of,
Mike Morham or
power.
something like that?
And
Like when he came
each
back, you
one
know, you
has
know how
a
he
ton of
he
unique
presented the
utility
World
as
of Warcraft
well.
stuff and like
You're
at
gonna be
BlizzCon and stuff like
able
that. It was
to,
really, really
disable
good,
various
right?
enemies,
Mm.
Then again, he is a huge name, so I guess they just let him do whatever he wants to do. But stuff like that like makes you
There's tons of stuff
want to
you can do with this.
listen.
So without
Like
further
I was
ado,
excited
let's
about
jump
World of
into how
Warcraft
exactly that
content.
works
I don't even
and
play
how it
WoW.
can be
I never even
slotted.
touched WoW, but I was excited
So on the
about
left
it.
side here, we have Celestial Surge.
Yeah.
That is the tooltip
I mean,
for
whenever
one
Chris
of the
Metzen had,
5
like,
catalysts that you can actually equip.
long,
It
you know,
is
like
the one
introduction
that
for like some
causes
WoW
a
stuff
star
where you
storm
also
to
listen
fall
like,
on
oh,
enemies.
this
On the
light,
right
you
hand
know,
side,
like
you have the Smoldering
Yeah.
Ember, which is an infusion. So this will
Verify
make
that says we need the
Celestial
rock.
Surge a fire version of the catalyst. So you will need to slot Celestial Surge, and you're going to have to assign
that would
it to
actually be
one of the
funny.
skills.
Yeah,
in your
Chris
hotbar.
Messing who has to
So
do with
in
it.
the
Yeah,
middle
it was Chris
section,
Messing. I'm
and we'll
sorry.
have a
Yeah,
video to,
I don't know her
kinda
name.
show this.
Yeah, it was
But
Chris.
basically, you assign Celestial Surge to one of
Chris
your own
Metzen is,
skills, and when you use
goated.
that skill, it invokes Celestial Surge with the Smoldering Ember infusion
Regarding
applied
these
to it.
spells, like
So let's take a look at what
for
that
guides,
actually
like
looks
leveling
like.
guides and stuff, is it possible to
So here we
access like
are,
the
kinda
red?
tinkering with
Like,
our
I don't know, are they
spellcraft in the UI.
legendary somehow?
We're going to equip Celestial Surge, and
or
we're going
do
to
I-
assign
like,
it
do you guys
to
stick to the
our
blue ones during
rightmost,
leveling, or-
skill, which in this case is
For
Lightning
leveling,
Storm, I
probably
believe. So
blue.
whenever we
I mean,
cast
it's-
Lightning Storm and Celestial Surge,
You're
we
not-
just don't know how
cooldown,
accessible they are.
we are going to cast Celestial
don't think they're
Surge
accessible
in
that early,
addition to
though.
channeling Lightning Storm.
Yeah.
I don't even
Now,
know
we can't
if you can
use
get him
Celestial
leveling
Surge, like I said,
like
unless
past
we
like a
have,
certain tier.
an infusion equipped. So we are also additionally going to equip Smoldering Ember and
Arcana
make that
you can
Celestial
get
Surge
from,
a fire version of itself. And Dan, luckily
Nightmare
for you,
Dungeons, or,
this
like,
makes it
the
so it
new
destroys
stuff
water
in
elites as
Nightmare
well.
Dungeons.
So for
So
anyone
that
else out
should
there
be
that also
accessible pretty
dislikes
early on,
water
but like a
elites,
bunch of it
this will cause Celestial
was, like,
Surge to
accessible only
break
after
those
Torment
walls down,
1.
which is pretty great. It will also turn off Chilling Winds as well. So yeah, now we have
makes
a
sense.
functional spell. So let's go in. We're casting Lightning Storm, and we also see these stars falling. Not a very fun time for them, but a pretty great time for us. Everyone explodes, and we have a good day. Awesome.
I think you can
Now,
find
there
it
is
like
a
Arcana
third
while you're just
component
exploring
to
Necro
heraldic
dungeons,
spells.
and then
It is called Arcana.
some stuff is from heraldic
So with
throne rooms, and
Arcana,
they might
this,
just
you don't
be.
need Arcana equipped for your heraldic spellcraft to function, but it gives it a bunch of awesome extra effects. So we have 3 examples here.
Surely
I'll
we're
go
gonna get
over
that
them just
information
really
now,
quickly.
though.
We have the Sapping Crux. It causes your catalyst to also apply vulnerable for a pretty
Oh yeah, I
substantial
guess
amount
no
of
was
time, so
nerfed
you
to
can
just be a damage
effectively
payload.
solve vulnerable through this system. We have Reactive Ooze, which causes you to generate a pretty
That's kind of rough.
substantial
Like
amount
it
of
can
your
be
resource
used still
every second
for
the next 10 seconds. So you can potentially
Lucky
solve
hit
your
builds
resource through that.
just to buff,
And we also have
like, to
Sharpening
double
Gizmo,
your
which
lucky
will
hits to get more
blast people
triggers,
for quite a bit
but
of physical damage and increase the lucky hit chance of
kinda-
your Catalyst.
kinda rough.
Spoiler, your Catalyst has a lucky hit chance, which can be really, really useful. Now, we
You
also
mean the
have
Gizmo?
some fancier
the Gizmo.
Arcana. These examples are Magic and Rare Arcana, but the Nightmare Orb is Legendary. So Legendary Arcana is a bit different in that each of their effects differ based on which Catalyst you apply them to. So these two
earned by
tooltips might
completing
look the same
Herodic
at
Storm
first
Room
glance,
after
but they're
acquiring
actually
Legendary
for two
Arcana
different
from Herodic
Catalysts in the game.
Knowledge, so
The
it's
left
probably going to be
hand side
gatekept then
one is
to
specifically for
Tier 1
propulsion.
plus.
Yeah,
So it causes
Stronghorn.
repulsion
Yeah, Stronghorn.
to,
Strongrooms.
additionally fear enemies, and while they're feared, they periodically explode, which we will also check out. It sounds very scary, to be honest. And then on the right-hand side one, we have the Disintegrate version, which causes
do wonder
them
if
to
they-
take way more damage while they're feared from the
if they
actual
play the
Catalyst
game
Disintegrate.
enough to
So let's
understand
take a
how
look at
annoying
what this
random
looks like
fears
in
truly
action.
are.
So we have a Spiritborn here who has
Because
the
random
Nightmare
fears are
Orb
kinda-
equipped to propulsion. Boom, propulsion
mean like on
explodes
you
everywhere.
or on
They are
enemies?
all freaking out. They're
On
feared,
enemies,
and they're
like that.
exploding even more. And to be honest, I would also probably be feared if I was
I mean,
constantly exploding. So that makes
Getting
sense.
enemies to be that disrupted, just
And that
flying
is
across the
the
whole town.
Quick and dirty
is,
overview of the
bad
Herodic
thing.
Spellcraft system.
Look
It's
at
like
this.
There's
nerfing
a
yourself.
ton to experiment with
Yeah.
in this system. Can't wait for you guys to dig into it. There's
just sent
so
them to
many different
Narnia.
combinatorics, so many different possibilities.
Super Mike says that how is this information different than what we knew going to the PTR? It's
a
not.
blast.
Yeah, I really love how you can
It's just
customize it,
repackaged.
not only in like the effect of the spell, but also like how you use it, right? They do have cooldowns, but then you can assign it to any one of the skills.
I'm assuming they do this for those
So
who
if you
may not have
just,
like
want to save it for a
you know,
specific
seen the other
utility mode, right?
campfire
You've
or-
customized it in such a
or
way
whatnot.
that hey, it solves those Waller affixes,
I
right?
like that
And that's
they
what you want to use
reduced
it
a
for.
1
You can
hour
make sure it's
section
assigned
with
to a
Liam about
cooldown that you're
explaining
gonna
the
save
boss,
for that
like
right
the new
moment.
powers.
Or if you're just trying to
for,
really
like,
optimize its damage
5
output
minutes.
and its DPS, you just put it on your basic or core skill that you know it's going to come up
But
very
wait,
often.
there is more.
And you don't need to really think too hard about it. It's just going to trigger when it triggers.
Yep.
It's true. Like the crazy amount of combinations that come from the system. Like I know I said on the PTR stream, and I feel like the people who have played the PTR will be advantaged now because I feel like this is something that the patch notes just can't do justice. It's going to be
Yeah.
very hard to read through that and get a good example of how you can theorycraft and build craft through these. So it's really something you're
So
going to
the
need to jump
problem-
into the
the
game,
problem with
get
these
your hands
combinations,
on,
right,
and
that
then
he
really
was
start
talking
to
about now
tinker
stream,
with because there are so
it's
many
like there are
possibilities. So
171,000
if you have played the
combinations
PTR and you know
of,
these
like,
systems, then you've already
spells,
got that
arcana,
advantage of
catalysts, and
knowing how
infusions,
intricate
but
these systems are. So.
It's true.
it's like the same
And there's
4
not just
arcanas
that.
for every
You know,
single
you
build.
thought that was
The
enough.
issues just don't really add
Herodic
anything
magic.
apart from
There's more.
minor
another
problem
layer.
solvers, right?
Why not?
Yes,
And then you
there's
use
also
one spell.
Herodic Jewels.
Yeah.
So Herodic Jewels are
I mean, it's almost
powerful
like-
items that you can use
it's
to
almost like
augment your
there's
Herodic spellcraft and your
thousands of
character's
ways
build
to be able to
even
like
further.
string
So
and tie
when you
your
go into
shoes,
these
but you're
strong
still
rooms,
going to
once you're in
use
torment difficulty,
the 1 or 2
whenever you
methods
complete one,
that
you're going to
makes
find
the
a
most
Herodic
sense. You know what I
tome.
mean?
And
Like,
this is
It would
knowledge
eat
that
your
the
methods,
Herodic
yeah.
have stored away to
So
craft
he's
these
just
really
like-
powerful, unique
it's
Herodic
just-
jewels.
sure,
Once you
but
find
it's
the tome,
yeah,
you
it's
can
just
use
kind
it,
of
you can go
yeah,
to a
mostly
crafting
irrelevant. Yeah.
station, and then with gem fragments,
Like you could tie
and,
your shoes with your
seasonal
elbows. It's
currency,
gonna be a
craft
little bit
Herodic
slower than
jewels.
doing with your hands, though.
They're
Like,
yeah, crafting with Herodic files and gem fragments. It's not as many gem fragments as it was. To
Also,
craft
if you
occult
can tie your
gems,
shoes
so
with the
it's not
elbows,
quite
you're a
as
hero.
a massive grind as it was before.
Just be the ways.
And they're specifically socketed into amulets and rings. So you have 3 sockets that are specifically designated for this, which means that you can have up to 3 Herodic jewels. And here we have an example of a Herodic jewel. You know, it gives you some good stuff, core stat, max life, and you're going to be hunted in Sanctuary's darkest places. Well, that doesn't sound great.
I don't think you need to worry about that. No,
Yeah. No, yeah,
shouldn't be
that's-
anything. I'm sure that's just flavor text, right? That's all.
Oh,
that
yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah. No, that makes sense. Cool. Anyways, yeah, so let's talk about the how you craft Herodic jewels with a little short video to show us what that looks like. So we have the Herodic Lapidary here,
I like
which
the
is
pet,
where you're
though.
going to go to actually craft the jewels. We're going to navigate
The art
to the
team knows
craft
it every
jewels,
time.
section. We have them neatly organized among different categories to help you just, you know, sift through it all pretty easily. And we have quite a few of these. You know, I think there's I want to say 16 in total. There's 16 Herodic jewels. So whenever you go into a strong room, you're going to find more tomes, which is going to let you craft more, and then yada yada. So here with our
Different
wonderful
categories. Are
Stalvar,
there
the Awakened Arbiter, we want to craft
any
an idol
difference?
from below. So we need 15,000 of 3 different gem fragments, and then 3,000 of the seasonal currency, and voila, we have our idol.
I was gonna
It's
try to
fine,
say something
because
else, but
there's
you know
nothing
what?
wrong
Never
with this,
mind.
and nothing bad is going to happen from this gem at all, so it's no problem. You'll also notice that it gives you bonus armor and resistances, so you're not actually missing out on any of the bonuses you would typically get to your defense from normal gems being
Yes,
stocked
you are.
in those slots. But yeah,
Yes, you are.
Actually makes it
what's
harder to
this?
cap,
It sounds
actually,
like
not
the idol
easier
below
to
actually
I'm
not
hearing that.
great.
That's actually-
Makes it more difficult.
Oh
Right.
my god, oh no. Okay, so when you have the idol from below equipped, sometimes mummies will spawn. They're the jewel guardians that are guarding this jewel, and they will attack you, and they can be
I really
very
like these,
scary. So be very careful
mob
if you
type, though.
decide to
Like how they
equip
look
this
like.
jewel.
Oh yeah, like I
Especially
said,
if you're playing
the art team always
hardcore.
nails it, man.
My goodness, please don't equip this jewel if you're playing hardcore or expect to die.
Yeah, they don't just spawn when you're alone in an empty room. Sometimes you're in the midst of an already big pack or a boss fight.
Yeah.
Or a training room.
Trying to get their jewel back from you.
Yep, it's pretty spooky.
Like, the
but
problem-
you
the
can
problem
do
I
some
have
very
with
clever
these
things
for
with
at
these
times is,
guys.
like, it's a
Sometimes it's actually
screenshot
really
game.
good to have extra bodies to
It's like
make
it
a
looks
hit for,
great
like,
in a
whatever
still,
skills
right? Or
triggers
like,
you have,
you know,
which
if you're
is pretty neat.
taking individual frames of it,
yeah,
it looks really
let's
good.
move on
But I kind of
to,
want
our
the,
final section
you know,
here for the
Pee-wee style of
overview,
chaos
which
sometimes,
is
you know, where it's
PTR
like
learnings.
you are dashing
So
all over the screen
learned
wide
so
AoE
much from
and like doing the
PTR.
crazy
We
things.
can't talk about every single thing because it's a tremendous list.
It is. It is.
But we do have some highlights. we
Being
wanted to
says,
talk
I
to
think
you
they changed it
guys
so
about.
so they don't
first
spawn in
of
the
all,
training
going
room.
over Heraldric Spellcraft.
That was actually kind of funny
So
though.
we have made
I
it
don't
so
lie.
all of the deactivation
Just like,
rounds
why
is
you
this-
get from infusions and various things
PTR learnings,
3
okay.
seconds longer. So when you do actually deactivate an enemy affix like Waller or Chilling Winds, etc., it's going to last 8 seconds, up from 5. This is because we want to make sure that it feels as punchy as possible. When you do get that deactivation, you have a good amount of time to take them out and counterattack them. Secondly, we want to talk about the change of Siphoning
Do they
Gizmo
think
to
this game
Sharpened
is slow?
Gizmo. So we found that Sharpened Gizmo was
I mean, the way that they
challenging
play
for us
it.
in the sense that, like,
Yeah,
It's-
I was gonna say, the
it's-
footage they show
the
is clearly
footage-
slow.
Yeah.
Like,
If you
really
fear the
important
entire
for
room of
us.
monsters, it's gonna
And
be pretty
Sharpened
slow.
Gizmo was
Siphoning Gizmo. Siphoning Gizmo
Siphoning
was on the
Gizmo.
PTR.
Yes, sorry.
Was problematic in a variety of ways.
Yes, it was problematic in a variety of ways. And we also saw the Sharpened Gizmo, which is the new one, as an opportunity for a more physical-focused Arcana, because we knew that that was kind of missing from the PTR, and we heard a lot of feedback about that.
You know
The
what
next thing
this
I want to talk
actually
about
was?
is the propulsion teleport.
I'm not
change.
even being ironic
So,
about this. I don't
this
think that
effect
they
caused you
managed
to
to
be able
fix
to
the
teleport
shatter
effectively
siphoning
infinitely in
Gizmo
a lot
bug
of builds.
interaction.
And
So
it
instead
was
of fixing that,
transformative,
he
and
just
so
removed it.
transformative to the point that it was actually
100%.
stunting
Added the physical
on
one
build,
instead. I think that's what it is.
identity in many
Yeah.
cases. And we really want you to experience the full breadth of what different characters can offer in Diablo 4. We don't want it to all be condensed down to like
respect it.
one thing, right?
Yeah, when you're playing a
It
different class and a
depends. I
different
mean,
build,
that's
you
that's
want your
that's the approach
gameplay
they
to
took with
feel
Victimize.
meaningfully different.
Instead of
And
fixing all
these,
the
Heraldric
Julians of
Spellcraft
double
here
dipping, they
is kind of a
made a
complement
proc
on
base
top of
and-
what you're already doing.
yeah,
It's-
and then
it's a
and then
unique
something
utility.
still double dip,
It's,
but not as many
an
as before,
interesting
and that was
wrinkle to your
terrible.
build.
Yes.
And on the
So
PTR,
it's just
we found
like-
this
I think it's
particular
removed Victimize
teleport
from the game,
propulsion
dude.
interaction
Yeah.
was basically eclipsing everything else.
Yep.
And every single build, if you just like looked at a clip of different people playing different classes, it looked identical.
Yeah.
And that's not exactly the kind of gameplay that we think is healthy
Your
for
video
Diablo
on
4.
that
Yeah,
was
we want to make sure
on
every
like your
build has
stream
a
about
different
Victimize
silhouette. It
was
feels
literally
very different and
peak
textured.
season
So that's really
8.
important to us. Another thing I want to talk about is that
I was so-
Disintegrate has a much
I
wider
don't
area
even know,
now. So
man.
before it was kind of a tiny little beam between you.
I can't even
and,
explain to you my
the-
mental
The
state.
disintegrate thing, but now
Doing
it's
that.
much bigger. So you
Just
should be
do
able
that.
to disintegrate many more enemies
Wait.
with it, which is great. And then beyond that,
Wait,
there
they
are
made
tons of
disintegrate better?
miscellaneous changes to Heraldric Spellcraft. So go read the patch notes after this and check it all
Maybe.
out.
Yeah, if you've never read the patch notes
They made it
before,
wider.
and especially in the blog as well, anything you see that's colored in blue are all changes that have been made since the
Good.
PTR. So we've gone through read or tons and
I'm gonna be
tons
honest
of
with you. I haven't really
searches
looked.
to
I haven't really
see
looked
the
at that
patch
blog really.
notes and the blog. Patch notes will be publishing.
I kind of like
following the
skimmed
stream,
the
so go
blog.
check
I
those
didn't
out.
really like
Check out all the
look at
blogs,
it.
'cause those are all the changes that you've all influenced. So thank
Yes,
you so much.
absolutely.
I just saw people talking about
Alright,
Gizmo, and
moving
so
on to
I was like reading
Heraldric
that, but that's
Jewels.
about
So
it.
first thing, we added an entirely new Heraldric Jewel. It's called the Will Breaker. It speaks directly to physical damage. We heard that you know, a lot of Season 9 is focused on elemental damage, which is amazing and awesome and wonderful. But we also wanted to give physical builds some love and some tools to play around with. So the Will Breaker does specifically that.
Do we
So
have
if
any
you wanna
physical
smash people
builds?
with your hammer or blow people up with
Blurry will take advantage of this
Lancer or
jewel.
whatever,
Blurry,
that's
okay.
for you.
That's so nice.
And then
That's
secondarily,
nice.
Liminal
Okay.
Echo, which is the cheat death jewel, will not be dropping in hardcore. We heard a lot of feedback from the hardcore
But
community.
it is a sacrifice though,
that
because all the other
it
jewels are
maybe
good.
went against
Or there
the
are 3 other good
philosophy and the
options.
spirit of hardcore.
I mean, you would use the
So we really wanted to respect that.
for Dance of Nights, for
And this is
example, you
also an
would use the
ongoing
summoning
conversation
one, that
about
one,
like what is the spirit of
and
hardcore. So please keep giving us feedback about that. It's been super helpful, and we want to hear more.
Attack speed
And then
or
finally, of
idle.
course, there are also many more
Yeah, but
heraldic
idle is
summoning.
changes,
like
more miscellaneous
2%
stuff.
damage
So
increase,
again,
something like
after
that.
this,
Like
go
for
read
most
the
Yeah, it's
comments.
more about spawning
And with
the.
that, I believe I'll be
Like
passing
for
it over
you,
to
you
Dan
will,
to talk about
yeah.
a
you will level
myriad
up
of
faster by having
changes
more elites to
with
kill.
everything else.
Yeah, a myriad.
That's true.
So y'all
This
had
would be
a
physical
lot
too,
of
yeah.
feedback
Oh, yeah, okay.
on the Nightmare Dungeon updates. So I need a piece of paper to read them all off. I can't keep them all in my head. So first up, let's talk about the Herodric Strong Rooms a bit. So the Herodric Strong Room UI was
So his
not
watch is
clear
like
enough.
matching his
And
jersey.
so we added a new UI to the Herodric Strong Rooms. We added extra kill count
He got the
messaging
fit.
and extra timer warning. So
True,
it plays
does.
much tighter now.
I want that shirt.
When you
I do
enter it,
too.
you should be able to pretty much pick up what's going on. Now, we're not going to tell you how to get those high scores, but the fact that you should be getting a high score should be pretty apparent now. Pillars didn't feel great. You know, you had to stand in one spot for a long time in order to get the bonus. So, you know, we've made the pillars faster to complete, made the radius a bit larger, and now all 4 pillars will also be available at the start. So you can better choose what your path through the Herodric Strong Room is going to be.
Okay.
We also heard from a lot of you that the Strong Rooms really didn't support blasting well enough. And that comes in 2 flavors. It comes in challenge, and then it comes in the fact that Strong Rooms were overstaying their welcome a little bit. So we've added a pit-style death penalty. If you die, that timer is going to get knocked down, and you're going to have less room to earn. We've added additional ambushes as your attunement. We set the activity length to 100 seconds instead of 120 seconds. And also, if you should hit that max attunement, we're not going to force you to run out the timer. We're just going to spawn the boss right then and there. Now, a number of you
That's a
also
good change.
commented on Blood Bishop again. So we hear you. We built out a pool of bosses, mini bosses rather, that should spawn at the end of the strong room. And there's actually going to be a surprise or 2 in that pool as well. And then finally, there wasn't enough incentive, we thought, for you to actually complete the Nightmare Dungeon after doing the Strong Room. So we've added a buff. Now, if you remember from the footage, you saw the Grand Herodric Cache. It actually had a buff symbol above it. And so opening the cache will give you that buff, and you can carry that buff through the end of your Nightmare Dungeon run and get a bonus on the rewards that you'll get there. Now, let's talk about escalating nightmares a little bit.
Yes.
By far,
Talk about it.
About rewards.
the biggest amount of feedback was, feels pretty rewarding, but way, way, way too easy. So we have gone and made it more difficult. We have scaled the difficulty by several pit tiers every floor you advance. So just naturally, things are going to get harder, and you're going to have to push a little bit more and more.
Okay.
We've increased the amount of health and damage for Exalted Astaroth and the Amalgam. We have made some of those existing negative affixes a bit meaner. We've also resurrected and tweaked some of the previous negative affixes that launched with the base game. And finally, I mean, really, we just did a whole audit on our negative affixes, but we created a bunch of new negative affixes as well, including some pretty fun ones, we think. So, let us know what you think, of course, about the difficulty of that moving forward in any of these, because again, these are permanent updates, and we want to make sure that they,
pretty
really
big
feel good.
Changes there. I'm actually interested.
Other things, real quick, that we did. So we boosted the scalable rewards to match the increase in difficulty.
Okay,
so
scalable rewards.
As things are getting more difficult, we still want to make sure that the rewards are keeping up.
And coming shielding and reflecting. was-
it was a little
I was
hard
wondering
to
about
notice the gizmo that's
some
on
of
the
those.
floor that allows you to jump to the next dungeon. So we just opened the portal automatically, which you saw in the footage.
Good.
The escalating sigil didn't stand out enough, so it's got a beam now. It's got its own art, so that feels pretty good.
Does it have a
And then
backstory?
finally, we had asked a question during the PTR. You know, do folks want to have to wait until Torment 1 in order to be able to do escalating nightmares? And we heard from you, and you said, no, we don't want to wait. And we agree. So we actually created a pre-Torment version of the escalating sigil. It's not as rewarding because you're not in Torment. And it won't feature the Astaroth boss fight at the end. The Astaroth boss fight, the Exalted
I
version,
wonder if
has
that would be
been
like the
tuned
better way to level.
specifically for Torment. So we wanted to make sure that that was preserved. But still, you should get a good sense of escalation pre-Torment if you're lucky enough to encounter one of those as you're leveling up to 60. And that's it for the list here. Again, please keep giving us feedback. We love to hear from you, and we want to keep improving the game. So back over to you guys in Irvine.
Fantastic. Thanks for walking us through that, Dan. And
Those were actually all good changes.
PTR, early in June, so it's been a while since we had it, but yeah, we received such a ton of great
In the
feedback.
right direction, at least.
And yeah, Dan, like it sounds awesome. Like the strong rooms are punchier. The escalating nightmares are more nightmarish.
Still worried
and,
about the bringing back
Dan made a great point too. Like,
some of the
those are gonna
fixes
be
from
permanent
the
additions
launch
to
of the
both-
game.
Excuse me.
But
Into the seasonal realm, so
we'll see.
we do really want your feedback on that because it is going to be
Potential
an
disparage
iterative
there,
and
but-
permanent process. Permanent.
I
part
do
of the
think
game.
like I would rather
so we
have
do wanna tweak
frustrating
it where
nightmare
possible
fixes
and,
that makes
get
the
those in
game
Yeah,
like,
it's super important that we
approach
get
the game
new
differently
Nightmare Dungeon
than just
stuff and
being, oh,
escalating
I press
nightmares,
death trap and everything on my screen
really
dies.
down well.
Like
Because
having
we want it to be
something
a
that
repeatable
might
thing
make
that you're
me not
doing
do
pretty
that could
consistently
be,
in your experience.
you know,
So when you are
fun.
doing that kind of stuff fairly consistently, it needs to feel like really punchy. It needs to feel really smooth. So it will be a very iterative process. We will be taking a look at more feedback coming in and probably making additional improvements to it over time.
Yeah, absolutely. And Dan will be coming back for Q&A at the end of the stream, so we will be grabbing your questions then. And I did want to call out Mac Hayes from chat when Dan was going through the Heretic Strong Runes.
Oh, Mac
Said,
Hayes.
blast me up, Dan. So love to see that. Love to see that in chat.
I like Mac Hayes.
But yeah, in terms of more changes coming down the pipe, probably our biggest, most substantial part of the patch notes is always the balance changes that we have coming in. So
Yep.
Charles Dunn, take us to the promised land. What balance changes do you have for us?
Yeah, I'd love to talk about all the class updates that we did for Season 9. And so my section, I'll be talking about some of the new stuff that came in that you may have seen on the PTR, but also talking about some of the adjustments we've made since the PTR. Some of the learnings, some of the feedback we've gotten, and how we've iterated since then. So at a high level, there's a few broader initiatives that we've done that really affect all classes in some ways that we're doing here for Season 9. The first one you probably saw a lot on the PTR was a basic skill buff. Listed about basically every basic skill in the game, and most of them were buffed rather dramatically. Some of them 2 or 3x their damage increase. The impetus here was that we wanted to look kind of comprehensively at the game as a whole, the wider balance, and think, you know, are basic skills really fitting where they should in terms of their overall damage output and how they fit into builds, and really they were just like well behind the curve.
Yeah.
We want them to feel much more impactful, be a bit more, you know, feel better when you first get them, but also be easier to kind of build around as you go and build up your character. We buffed up the baseline versions of a lot of these skills, but we did take a look at some of the legendary and unique aspects that interacted with them. Our goal wasn't to be like, oh, basic skill builds, you know, kind of like we saw with Spiritborn and Barb in the past. We didn't want those to be like, oh, here, this is we're making them the new meta.
Yeah.
This is more around like rebalancing the whole game as a whole. And we started with basic skills, trying to establish a firm power budget for them. And
Maybe
we're
we
going
should
to be
just start with
looking
core
and doing these kind of
skills,
passes
honestly, let's be
on
real.
other categories of skills, such as core skills, ultimates, etc.
Considering how
in
bad
future
they are
seasons.
across
That's going to be like
all
an area
classes.
of focus for us moving forward. We're just starting here with basic skills.
Yeah, it's like a health pass really on basic skills, and we'll be taking more looks at more categories.
Right. With the from the PTR, one big thing we noticed was that Pain Gorger's Gauntlets, one of the unique items that really empowers these basic skill builds, was definitely not living up to its billing. it didn't crit or overpower whenever its damage kind of echoed out, and it's supposed to be like a multiplier on your basic skill damage, but really it fell a lot short. So we've made an update so that now Pain Gorger's Gauntlets is going to be able to crit and overpower just like your basic skill damage. So that should definitely be a huge boon to those.
Let me check when I reported this.
Speaking of overpower, though, overpower was
Let's see, Pain Gorger,
and we have done some nerfs to it. For the past few seasons, overpower-based builds have been definitely dominating the top of the meta, and it was definitely crowding out builds that really couldn't utilize that. Things like dot-based builds or
25th of
or
July.
Yeah.
2024.
So with that in mind, on the PTR, we tested an 80% reduction in the additive damage calculation of overpower. Not to get too in the weeds here, but there's kind of like an additive amount of damage.
Didn't Beatdropper do the same thing?
Fortified life and
you made
maximum
mention
life.
of that.
We've just removed that
I made the original
we tried
report
an 80%
okay.
reduction
on this
is what it
luxury
was,
and
we decided it's still too strong,
where I
it's still
mentioned
too
it for the
complicated,
community, and then
we just
Beatdropper did the
removed that
same
portion.
based
So now
off
when you
of
overpower,
some of
you're
the
going to do up
findings
to
I had as
50% bonus
Gotcha.
damage, just like a critical strike, but that's kind of going to be the end of the calculation there. We still anticipate, if you really want to, the biggest damage number hits are still going to be when you crit and overpower at the same time, but it's not going to be that you must overpower or else nothing else matters.
Right.
It's just going to be in that same kind of bucket as critical strikes.
Yeah, there's a certain point where something becomes so powerful that occurs, where it's like, if you didn't do that, then nothing else matters. And that starts to kind of erode the whole game experience.
And finally, we did a pass on all the key passives.
If you didn't clone,
much like the basic skill kind of audit that we did, we looked at all the key passives and really wanted to look at some of the ones that were...
No, it's just
recap.
Caused
Some of our builds that were 10, 100x stronger than other builds. A lot of times that came down to key passives that were scaling or interacting in ways that gave you far more benefit than some other key passives on other classes. And so some of those ones that had kind of that uncapped scaling, we added in caps to make sure that they don't get completely out of control. And ones that were like definitely underperforming, we did some rather substantial buffs to them to help bring them up to kind of parity across the board. So definitely I'll be touched on that a little bit later as we get into individual classes.
Okay, so later
let's get
we'll
on
see
to
that.
the individual classes, starting
Not in the
with
PTR, you didn't do
Barbarian.
that.
So our goals for Barbarian this season is definitely a meta refresh on exactly the Barbarian meta. For the past few seasons, we've seen a lot of Earthquakes,
also crit, no power, the same mechanic down.
No,
No,
not
not necessarily, no.
And those are cool, but a lot of the Barbarians for
understood
fantasy
it the
is
same
around
way,
hitting
that it
people
would
with
do
weapons,
something
and
to
so we decided,
put them
okay, we need to
together,
do some nerfs to
which
Earthquakes and
confused me.
some of those other
It might have
effects
just
that aren't
been
quite as
him wording himself
physical, hitting with
weird.
weapons,
Could be.
and buff up things like Whirlwind.
Yeah, I think
and
what they
Hammer
were saying
Engines
is
that are
like
a lot more
the
core
power level
Barbarians,
of critting
base
should be
fantasy.
a similar power level of
With that in mind,
overpowering.
we also got the new unique item, the Hooves of the Mountain
The value
God.
of
Let's take
either
a
of
look at
them
that here.
are
This
similar.
is the new unique boots item that is going to allow your basic skills, which I just talked about, to cleave. So once you hit maximum fury,
Is
I see
there
what-
any
you're
world
see what you
where
mean,
you would
Mike.
use Pain
draining that
Gorgers?
fury, and while you're in kind of this draining state, your basic
Well,
skills are going to cleave
before
and massively
the
increase damage.
Shadow Clone
And
got
luckily,
the
you're spamming out your basic
cutthroat
skills.
tag,
Yeah.
you would have.
Fury and allow you to keep
You know,
in this
the
state as long
new
as you
Pain
stay
Gorgers
in
glove,
combat and
but
stay fighting enemies.
Yeah,
now that
what I really
the
love about this
cutthroat tag
specific
is
unique is that
permanent
typically
on
you
Shadow
try to
Clone,
solve
then
your resource
doubt
limit,
it.
But with this,
I'm gonna try it
you
anyways,
to
but I doubt it.
Stack as much
I
of it as
doubt I
possible,
would
so
use
you
it
can
over.
stay in the mountain god state
Yeah.
or whatever you want to call it as long as possible.
Yeah, and you gotta
I
stay in combat, you
at
still gotta
least,
stay hitting people with
we'll be able to do
basic
some
skills
like
to keep it going. It's
blade
really
shift
quite
stuff
powerful,
now.
and I think it'll really enable
'cause
some of those basic
that was kind
skill
of the
builds
biggest
that we were
thing. I
talking about,
couldn't
especially with
I
the
couldn't
updated
do anything
Pain
with
Gorgers
AoE
gauntlets.
at all
Yeah.
whatsoever with
We've got a
blade
clip
shift.
of this in action.
Single target was
Bard
amazing,
walks
but
up to a big old pack of skeletons, hits them with bash. Good old
Yeah.
bash skill cleaving through the hordes
But-
and throwing them against the side of the canyon here. Yes, very good. A new unique to enable basic skill builds. Not just bash, all of the basic skills will cleave with this. So
That's the same
find out
footage,
which
right?
one works best for you.
Yep.
Yeah, Frenzy?
Yep.
Can I hear any Frenzy enjoyers?
Same exact
Yeah,
one.
indeed. All right, let's move on to Druid here. So the Druid
It looks
updates
cool, though.
this season were mainly focused around
least the
Pulverize.
ragdoll
It's kind of
effect,
a main skill that we wanted to look at. I'll get more into that as we talk about the Rotting Lightbringer in a moment, the new unique that talks with Pulverize. But ever since the PTR, we also realized that it was still underperforming baselines. We've done some
The problem I
buffs
have
to
with the Flurry Helm,
Pulverize,
although I love it,
its
is
raw
just
damage
like when you
output,
use Shroud of
as well
Full
as,
Death, you get a
refactored
point in
some of the
innovation,
upgrades on it,
and
just
that
to move
single
around,
point
that to
like
better
generates
work with the
too
build
much
Lightbringer.
energy.
But it wasn't just that. We also did a variety of
that
other
kind
buffs
of
on Druid. We know
kills
that Druid has historically, for
the
the past,
idea that you're, like,
handful
kinda
of
draining
seasons,
health.
been probably the worst class in the
That
game,
makes
certainly
me
in
sad,
terms of like
'cause then we can't use dark
representation,
damage
how many
aspect
people are
and stuff
playing
like
it,
that.
how
But-
late into the end game, how strong
Yeah.
they're getting. It's definitely fallen behind.
Otherwise,
the
I'm
pack.
excited to play Failure.
And so with that in mind, we've done
I'm just
buffs
excited
to
that it's
a wide variety
mathematically
of the Druid
better still
builds.
now than,
I can't just say any
Aeropedition.
particular buff. It's a handful of legendaries and uniques and skills.
Yeah.
They got buffed
It's
up
gonna
just
be
to bring the whole class
huge.
up a little bit. So let's take a look at that Rotting Lightbringer, that new unique. We did see this on the PTR, but it has been rather substantially reworked since then. We heard a lot of feedback that it wasn't quite as usable, it wasn't as good as it could be. So the
That's
new
a
version of
big
Rotting Lightbringer
bull
says that
power,
if no puddle is around you,
like,
then Pulverize is going to form a puddle of poison that guarantees its own overpower and deals a massive amount of its normal damage as poisoning over time.
Yeah, this is really excellent because you can just go around and just make a bunch.
Yes, it is no longer tied. It used to have like a 10-second cooldown, which
felt really bad, where you would try to pulverize and you're like, oh, the cooldown's not up, and then you move to the next pack and it doesn't work. It was very, it didn't work as well as you had hoped. Yeah. So with this new update, it should definitely work quite a bit better. And every time you do pulverize, all of the puddles around you are going to splash some of their damage, because what's better than splashing poison all around? Let's take a look at this new version of Rotting Lightbringer in action. So you run up, you form a puddle, you move off to the side, you make a second puddle, you can form more than just two, and every time that you pulverize, all of your existing puddles are going to do that little splash of AoE around them and pulse some more damage.
Yeah, so when you're in a room with just a ton of monsters, or like a strong room, for example,
Yeah.
you can just go around and make a bunch and have some fun in the sun. Or not the sun, because I guess you're in the dark dungeon. but
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, it is a
The
nightmare
sun
dungeon.
and the poison comes with you.
Yeah, oh, how nice. Wonderful.
Okay, let's move on to the Necromancer here. The Necromancer, similar to Druid, had a variety of buffs, specifically to Golem builds, Bone builds, and Shadow builds. Some of these builds were definitely falling behind the rest of the pack on Necromancer and compared to other classes in the game. So we've done a handful of buffs to those builds since the PTR to bring them up and really help to make them a bit more competitive. Two of the outliers on Necromancer from last season were Soul Rift and Bloodwave, two of their ultimate skills that just were, Soul Rift in particular just did way too much for any one skill. Obviously it dealt damage, but then it gave you a barrier, it gave you resource, it gave you damage, increased all of your other damage output, refilled your potions, and
Will they
feared enemies.
mention
So that's a
Death
lot
Trap
of things
is
for
my
one skill to
question.
do. And we love ultimates doing a lot, but that was kind of one thing too many.
Yeah.
So on this season, we've removed the barrier generation from Soul Rift, and so if you want to get really tanky as a Necromancer, you're going to have to look for some alternate sources to make yourself a little tankier, alternate barrier sources as well.
Yeah, we want to give you all the tools you need to solve your problems, but we don't want you to solve all your problems through one of your tools.
Right. Yeah, Soul Rift was just doing a little bit too much for that, and that's why it was kind of so dominant, so popular. Bloodwave, another ultimate skill as well, that just did a ton of damage. Its damage output was exceptionally high.
Yes.
I think part of that was due to the overpower being so overpowered, and so some of the nerfs there would probably bring that down to size. So we expect Bloodwave to hopefully not be the absolute dominant way of playing Necromancer, and we hope that some of those other builds like Golem, Bone, and Shadow have a few other ways of playing. We've also got the new unique, the Hand of Nas. This is a pretty cool new way of playing the class, specifically Minion Necromancer. Let's take a look. So the Hand of Nas, it gives you more skeleton mages. So if you go all in on your mages, you sacrifice your warriors, you sacrifice your golems, you can now summon additional mages for each minion that you sacrificed. So you can have far more mages than
Hey,
before.
so if you don't mind me asking, what do you teach?
And,
I teach music.
Just like any good, RPG, your skeleton mages
The
can get
assistant band
experience.
director / percussion
So
director.
they attack 25 times, then they
At,
get to level
high
up to
school.
a skeleton archmage. And when
I
they're in
feel
the
like
archmage
25
form,
times is a
they
lot of
are
attacks,
harder to
but
kill.
maybe
They're going
not.
to teleport around to safety if they get attacked.
I don't know the attack speed,
and their attacks are going to occasionally shatter and deal bonus
like
damage
frequency
to
of
target
skeletal
and
mages,
nearby
but
enemies. We can take a look at this in action. You know, you've got your big old
25
backline of
is
a
kind of
ton
a
of
lot.
mages. You won't have your skeleton warriors. You won't have your golem if you really want to maximize your mages. So that really puts you, the necromancer,
I
as
mean, the
kind of
current
being the
attack speed
front
on screen
line
is like,
for your
you need
your
20
army
plus
of
seconds.
minions. Kind of turns the traditional minion necro on its head a bit.
Looks like
whereas
like
your
one
minions are
attack per
often the
second
front line
almost.
for you,
But
and then
this
you
is
come off the
probably
damage.
low
In this
level.
kind of build, you're going to be the front lines trying to keep the enemies off your mages while they pump out the DPS from the back line.
Yeah, really. This
Are the
makes
mages
so
like
you have a
repositioning themselves
college of
automatically,
mages, one
or?
could say. And
Yeah,
mages aren't
they,
the greatest
they like
at
jump away
tanking, so
Ah,
you know
cool.
you got to figure that
If
out
they
yourself.
get hit or something.
All right, we've got
That's
the
kinda cool.
rogue up
Unstoppable,
next.
according to
So the
Passions.
rogue, we did some updates to
Uh-oh.
Death Trap and Shadow
Rogue.
Clone in this season. So much
Whoa.
like Necromancer, where they had a couple of ultimate
Shadow
skills that were
Clone,
really
did they?
dominant in the meta, specifically
Shadow
Death
Clone,
Trap
did they?
and Shadow Clone on the rogue.
We're about to
Death
find
Trap, was kind of like Soul Rift in a lot of ways. where it
Victimized
did,
we were.
a
Hold
little
on,
bit too
hold
much
up,
of
hold
everything.
up,
Did pull
hold
in,
up.
did damage, other damage increases. And the big problem with that from like a balance standpoint was that it was very easy to be able to just hold down the Death Trap button and spam cast it.
Yeah.
That was due to a number of
You mean Darth Vader?
effects interacting to give you cooldown reduction on it and reset its cooldown, including whenever you overpowered or killed an enemy with it. It would help tick off some of that cooldown reduction. We've removed that
Never should be a
functionality,
class.
so it's a little bit harder to get to that full zero cooldown Death Trap. If you are still really building your
feel like I've
character
never
out,
noticed
you'll
that
still be able to get
functionality.
there. It'll just be a little bit harder of a journey, similar to the philosophy on Soul Rift. We want you to be able to solve these problems, but it was a little too easy to do it on Death Trap and really short-circuited the progression cycle of building up your character and feeling that growth and that strength. Shadow Clone was doing a ton of damage, much like a Blood Wave, and it kind of went a little bit against the fantasy of, you know, your Shadow Clone should be augmenting your strength, and it should be kind of mirroring your damage output. What in reality,
I have
based on
so-
what it was doing, was like you did a little bit of
I have
damage, and
anxiety
the
for
Shadow
real.
Clone dealt a ton of damage.
Yeah, it felt more like you were the Shadow Clone.
Yes, it did feel like that. Shadow Clone mimics your effects, but it also changes some of the skill tags that it works with. So Shadow Clone is an ultimate skill. It is a cutthroat skill. So no matter what it's casting, that skill is an ultimate and cutthroat skill. It basically allowed it to access some extra multipliers, some extra bonuses.
Are they removing
Baseline, there's
cutthroat or
a
what?
kind of damage penalty on the Shadow Clone, and we've kind of increased that so it doesn't deal quite as much percentage damage, but is still a good
Oh, no.
modifier to your damage output.
Wait, what did
And
they
we've
do?
also added some damage reduction component to it. So the Shadow Clone kind of takes some of the hits for you, right? Takes some of your damage
Yep.
and gives you that damage reduction instead.
Oh,
We
no.
talked about key
What?
passive
Oh, no.
earlier.
Oh, no.
Victimize is a key passive on Rogue that
added that
while
large
we have
penalty
reworked,
to
it
Shadow
was one of
Clone
those ones
damage.
that was either like super weak or super strong,
Or
depending on the
poor
precise
builds, guys.
tuning. And it really
Wait, hold on.
we
What
struggled to
am I
get
victimized?
that into to balance it well against other options.
Right.
And so we've done a rework here where it's damaging vulnerable enemies is going to cause them to do a burst of damage, but then you also deal multiplicative increased damage to those targets after you burst. You trigger that victimize effect on them.
What?
And we think this will get it to a much healthier state where it's like more consistently useful rather than all or nothing. And the new unique for Rogue
Can we get an
this season
example?
is the Death Mask of Nirmatrek. And this one
I, like, understood maybe
works
half of
with
that.
your flurry builds. Let's take a look here. So the Death Mask, you can now overexert yourself while casting Flurry. And what does that mean? That is a new term to Diablo 4. It means that if you don't have enough energy, you're going to spend life instead to cast your Flurry. And when you do spend life to cast Flurry, it's going to increase its damage and your attack speed rather substantially for a period of time. So you do get to go real fast, attack real quick, but be warned, the faster you attack without any energy, the more life you're spending, the closer to death you're going to get.
It's called a Death Mask for a reason.
Right, we've got a clip of this in action. So you are running through, you are dashing to enemies around, and casting Flurry super fast, even when you are out of energy, and now your life total is going to start draining the more flurries you cast.
I never get tired of this clip. It's perfect.
It's so ludicrous.
It is a great clip. Really embodies that like fast, stabby, frantic style that
So
rogues are
why
known
are they?
for.
Yeah.
He's not using his circling
And
blades.
definitely,
or
I
is that-
love how this like turns your build crafting options on its head. Typically, you want to get, give me tons of resource
It
generation.
showcases the
But
spell
you don't
better
necessarily
without it.
want that here, right? You want
I mean,
to
right
be
now,
on
what
low
they're trying
resource
to
so
do
that you
is
can
just-
trigger the
they've
spending
just
life.
stacked attack
Because this
speed
effect
to
basically does
T,
nothing
right?
if you're
Because
not
it's already
spending
done.
life. And for all those hardcore players out there, be very warned that this one, it won't actually kill you, but it can bring you down to about 8% life, at which point pretty much anything else will kill you.
It will certainly help you die, that's for sure.
Aizen, you were talking about running this on hardcore for next season, right?
I was. I might be a little crazy.
All right, let's move on to the Sorceress. So the Sorceress, we've got updates here to
I'm curious about that
Lightning Spear
victimized
was one of the
thing,
big
though.
ones. Lightning Spear had been
It sounded
kind
to
of
me like it
dominating
was
the
like
Sorceress meta
a
for quite a while.
like a buff,
It was
damage buff to
really
you, like if
the
you-
premier build for a long
You
time.
tag the
And
enemies
this
and they
had
take
a
more
really
damage.
interesting situation
So it can
where
work for any
out
build,
of
kind
box, Lightning Spear was kind of terrible. Right?
Okay,
You
so
look at
it's
the
no
skill,
longer
you're
like a
okay, how much
proc-based
damage
thing?
does it do? How many enemies does it hit? What's its cooldown?
Yeah,
You're
or I
like,
think
oh,
it
this
probably
awful.
is a
Like,
proc-based
it doesn't
thing,
do
but
anything. And
Well,
then you
I
get
mean,
the
like,
three
I mean, like,
the,
you know, it
legendary
doesn't work
aspect,
as in like
and
you have
suddenly it
to
goes from nothing to
build
best skill in the
around
game.
the proc
Yeah,
per
and
se.
we don't want skills out of the
exactly.
box to feel.
Okay, that's-
You can slap it onto any
we want
build
them to
and
feel powerful
get
and
some
good,
use-
and we also don't want
use out of it.
aspects to
The
have
decoy
to
says
carry
the
that
proc
much weight
triggers
on
the
their
damage
shoulders.
increase.
It's
Okay.
not good for
All right,
either
that-
the base skill or the
I,
aspect.
I can work with that.
So in this season, we
That
buffed
allows
up
other-
the base values of Lightning
That allows
Spear rather
other
substantially.
skills to
I
have
think it was like
something
a
to use
4 or
other than
5
close quarters
times
combat.
increased
Because
damage.
God, I hated
But we've looked at the Splintering Energy
putting
legendary
everything into
and-
close
and
quarters
brought that down
combat.
rather substantially.
just because
To be clear here, our goal is still that Lightning Spear, we do not want it to be the best way of
D4
playing
chat
Sorceress.
doesn't seem impressed.
It
The
has
game
had
needs an
its time
X
in
pack
the sun for a
ASAP.
few seasons now. It's really been
Well,
I think
so
it's
yeah,
time for some other
I don't
options
I don't
to
blame them,
rise up
especially
and
at the
be like some
beginning of the
stronger builds on
presentation,
Sorceress. We
and the
still want it
fact
to be
that a lot of this is
viable way to play.
regurgitated
We don't
information
wanna
all the way
completely
up
kill
until
it to
the
nothing,
the
but
class
it shouldn't
changes
be
stuff.
the absolute
So
dominant,
yeah, I'd be a
or
little
strongest way to
unimpressed
play
either.
here, Sorceress.
I mean, as well, like let's be honest.
To that point,
But,
we've updated Icefall and Firestarter. Icefall is a legendary Paragon node that works with your Frost
But I
skill.
will say that
Those cold skills are going
To
do
be
quite a bit more
fair,
damage with this. It's just some
like,
numerical buffs there.
the fact that
And
they
Firestarter,
are doing
that's a
campfire
legendary
chats
aspect that works with
and
your
putting themselves
flame
out there
skills,
and stuff like
the
that,
other
doing
two
this on a
builds outside
consistent
of
basis,
Lightning
regardless
on
of
Sorceress.
the state of the
Firestarter
game.
previously just did kind of a
It's
chunk
still a
of
welcome
moderate
addition,
fire
even
damage,
if we
but
still
wasn't
do
anything
joke
special.
about
Now it
some of the
also gives
things
you
that they
multiplicative
really
fire
should do a lot
damage,
better
which
with.
is really good if you are picking, say, the
I do
Fire
appreciate that
Infusion
they actually
Catalyst
still
for
do
your
this.
Heraldic Spellcraft.
Oh, true. Or some crazy new unique that might be making its way into.
Yeah, a crazy unique like the Ophidian Iris.
Oh, whoa.
Let's take a look at the Ophidian Iris.
But they can
This
definitely do a
is
better
new
job with the
unique
format of
amulet
this, so.
that works with your Hydra skill. It makes Hydra into a core skill.
One
and
thing
it's
that
always
would
going to
help
summon
me
a
personally is
three-headed
if they
Hydra,
had the patch
and
notes
those
on
Hydra's
the
attacks
another
explode on
like during the, so I can
Now,
like I don't care
previously
about
you could,
Sorceress, so I can like
build
be
up
reading the
effects
patch notes
that
right
gave you
now.
more heads
That would
to
be
your
nice.
Hydra, and for every head above 3 that your Hydra would have had, instead it grows in size and deals multiplicatively more damage. We tested this out on the PTR, and one of the big points of feedback was
Also,
that
too, at the
there's
same
kind of
time, I
two ways
think-
of building Hydra.
I think
you can build with more
what will
crit
also help
focus,
too
like
as well
crit
is like
fire,
as they're
or more
showcasing all
burning
these
damage
different
focus.
things or
And
newer
previously
class
the-
changes stuff
the
like that,
axes
they need to
on the
do them in a
Ophidian
more
Iris
realistic
really
environment,
tried
like
to force you into the
like
critical
do
strike
them
version
in
of
you
the
know
build.
putting
And
like
we've
a
updated them here, so we removed all the
non-build
strike chance and added
together
attack speed,
and then
which is good for both.
showcasing them killing
And,
like 4 or
changed
5
the,
mobs in a
ranks of the
random
passive
area.
over
It
to
doesn't
Primordial Binding, which is
doesn't
once
give
again
us
good for
that,
both, rather than,
oh, this
giving
is
you the
really
critical
cool
strike
type
pyromancy
ordeal,
effect.
you know, ordeal. It makes
Just
it look
being
like
a
they
bit more
don't play the
generic
game.
and allow you to play it
Yeah, it's true.
whichever way you
And so like
Like
and
have
kind of
a-
equally support
yeah, so
a
you-
stream or something. Showcase
yeah,
it.
yeah, so like we lose interest
because
because it looks like a tutorial. You know what I'm saying? Like give us some, you know, in-game footage, like or an actual like, hey, this is what you would actually do in this, you know, with this build in this scenario or whatnot.
A lot bigger and a lot more visually impressive.
They are
I
absolutely.
guess the counter argument is like
They
maybe
really are. They get to
I'm
become
assuming they don't want to
Hydra
reveal
Fairy.
too
Also,
much
honestly,
or
I've never felt
something,
bad for
or
a
like you
cause for a
don't want
test dummy before,
to show. You just want to
but I feel
hint
kinda
towards
bad
what
for
you
this
can
guy.
do with it or how it works.
Well, I mean, at
Let
this
us
point,
figure
is
out.
there
Looking forward to playing
is
with
there
this one.
anything new
Yes,
to
next
reveal?
season.
Let's be
Yeah,
honest.
this will be.
I mean,
it'll be running for.
I can understand like
Hydra also.
maybe the
Sweet.
launch of the game or something like
All right,
that,
let's
or
move on
launch
to
from the
the
X
final
pack,
boss,
but
Spiritborn. So for Spiritborn this
we're
season,
kinda
we've
in,
looked
like,
at updating
what
the
feels
Razor
like
Wings
kinda
build.
maintenance
That's a
mode
build
into
that,
the
has
X
had
pack
some
right now
support, but never
anyways.
really quite got there. We've made some adjustments to some of the legendaries and
But
that affect that build to really help bring it up and make it a bit more robustly supported. I want to talk a little bit about the Hunter. That's the Jaguar ultimate skill.
Reverted.
We tested a change on the PTR where we, so currently on Season 8, and ever since it's launched, it had this mechanic where if you kill an enemy while the Hunter is active, it has a chance to reset its cooldown completely. So if you get lucky and you get a lot of kills, you can kind of spam cast Hunter until you,
droppers is.
until you miss.
So core
basically.
skills deader.
we tested out a change on the PTR where instead of doing that, it would just give a more consistent amount of cooldown reduction. And this was, we heard loud and clear that that is not fun. It was really not what you wanted. Players really liked that kind of feast or famine version of Hunter, where it had that gameplay texture of constantly resetting and that mini game of making sure you maximize the number of kills for the short duration that it's active.
Yeah, it had really it evolved into like a core part of the spirit of the Jaguar.
Interesting.
And we don't want to
Nerf
have to
Shadow
take that away.
Clone
Right.
did not nerf
so this is
Death
one of the great
Trap.
things about testing.
So the
these
gap
types of
will just be
changes on
bigger.
Wait,
PTR is
that
we're
is
allowed
right.
to
They didn't talk
use,
about Death Trap at all.
a bit
I mean,
like,
well, I guess
more
they kind of
dramatic
did.
changes,
Did
and
it
then
briefly.
If they don't,
Well, they
I mean,
regurgitated the same
and
information
so in
though.
this
Like the
case,
same
we
exact
decided
information.
to
They didn't say
revert
anything else
those
new that
changes
they
back to
did from
what it was
PTR.
before.
I mean, it could be in the patch
Now,
notes. Who knows?
for
But
context, the reason we tried to
watch the
sure
fix
the-
watch the
was
fix
that
the pants
Hunter
and like
was
now
by
Death Trap
far the
seems
most
stronger.
popular ultimate skill on Spearborn. I think something like
God,
90+%
I
of
think the
Spearborn
change
players were
since
using
the
the
PTR
Hunter.
is that they
And that's
removed
not
the
really healthy
overpower
for
reduces
build
cooldown.
diversity. And
Sure.
we thought, okay,
Like,
if
I'm
we
pretty
adjust
sure that
its
was not
cooldown
in the
mechanic,
PTR.
that will be what we need to change.
Did we?
So instead, we looked at
Did you
some
build for
numerical
overpower and
adjustments to it,
PTR
so
for
it
Death
doesn't
Trap
have
or no?
quite as many bonuses
No.
whenever
Yeah,
it
so
does
like-
function,
yeah,
but
so
it
I'm
still
like-
functions the same as before.
And then the
Yeah,
pants
so
were
it-
In
bugged.
order to
So
promote
like,
a bit more diversity, we
you know what I mean?
bumped
Like-
up the other ultimate skill options. The other 3 Spirit Guardians
And
now
pants
will
weren't
give
bugged,
you
though.
other ways
Where
of
were-
getting
where were
multiple
the
not that
damage
bugged, but like they were
whenever
bad.
you have
Like
them active.
Oh yeah, yeah,
The
yeah. No,
Devourer
it's
will
3%
give you
damage
multiplicative
increase.
poison damage. The
It's nothing, but
Gorilla Ultimate, the Protector, will give you bonus damage
over
while you
not
stand in
having
this area
any
that he's
pants,
pounding
mind
down
you.
on, gives you
Like,
that
compared to
power.
like having
And the
Tibbs or
secret,
like
the
even
Eagle
legendary
Ultimate
pants
will give you
damage loss.
guaranteed
But
critical strikes
the
while it's active.
problem
Awesome.
is like
And finally, we've got the new unique
I'll
item.
say
of
this with
Balazan's
as much
Max
love
Latel. We've got
that I can muster.
I've been working on that.
But they
Uh-huh.
feel a little bit,
So good.
Been working on that
you
one.
know, not
Nailed
in
it. All right,
tune with
so,
how the builds
Balazan's
actually
Max
work.
Latel. We've got.
That's what the feeling
Let's
I
take a
got
look at
from
that.
this.
This
Like,
is
if you
the,
look at
new,
overpower, if
pants
you look
unique.
at DET
It's,
and you're like, oh
triggers,
well,
when
we can
you attack
only
enemies who are
affect
close,
this build
it'll
by
trigger your
removing
thorns damage
the
as
cooldown
poisoning
from
damage. So it's like
overpower.
poison and thorns combination here.
when
And every
and
time
killing
you've
enemies.
retaliated with thorns,
Yeah,
you've gotten hit recently,
when
then that
neither
poisoning damage is going
like
to increase.
that wasn't
I
even used
really
on
love this
PTR.
unique because it speaks to the spirit of
Yeah,
Thorns.
it's like
which
it's
is
a nerf,
I
but
must be
it kind of
hit,
irrelevant
and then I
nerf.
retaliate.
Right.
Yeah, it's like
but,
a nerf to like.
expands on that, which is really cool.
Yeah, and it gives you more
I didn't
consistent
have a good
value. Like if you're
comparison.
not
It's like,
getting hit,
oh,
your thorns
you're
is
as
worthless.
twisting
now
blade
you've built
stroke,
enough thorns,
you
it's
now
still
deal less
positive,
distant damage.
offensive value,
That's
even if you're
basically
not
what it
getting
feels
hit.
like.
But of
You know,
course,
it's like
getting
not even
hit
relevant to
and
the build.
triggering those thorns is going to get you even stronger.
Like getting more cool,
on
like
the PTR,
accidental
this
cool. Like
was
no one is gonna play
definitely,
around
What's up,
accidental
lad?
cool
Very powerful.
Very, very strong.
But I think
We
it's
did
fine. Like the
adjust
nerf
its
is fine.
numbers
But
down quite
what my point is
substantially.
that it's like
the percentage of
the gap
thorns
between
converted
that
has been
DT's current
reduced.
state and with the
We still
Shadow
expect
Clone
this to be a very
nerf, it's going to be
powerful build,
massive now.
but you know, it's gotten
Yeah,
brought down a notch
yeah,
or
my-
two
my
because
point
it
was
was
that-
by far the most
Like,
powerful build that we saw.
Now all
on
the
the
tier
PTR.
90
Yeah.
builds, which is a lot of
All
there's a lot
right,
of
we've
tier
got a
90
clip of
clone
this in
builds.
action here.
They're down
Right,
to
so
probably
you're standing in the
80,
middle, you're
85.
getting hit, you're
Well, I wonder
clicking
though,
your defensive
will the
skills so
new
you get
victimized
neutralized,
rework
and then
actually
once
buff the
you get
clone
hit
as well
and
too as
stack that
well,
up, you can
or is
go
it zero
around and
damage?
apply bonus poisoning
I still
and
forget
thorns
to
damage
test.
to all the enemies around
Well,
you.
I guess
Those idiots. Why are
day
they even
one.
hitting you?
I don't
or
know.
so.
I'm sick that day.
All right, and so that covers all of the class updates. Once
No,
again,
but
make sure you check
my
out,
point with this is like if
the
they're
patch notes
gonna
after
say that
the,
over like
live stream here,
Death
check out
Trap
the
is
blog.
too
It's
oppressive
got
and too
all of
strong,
the
you can
details.
spam it too much, and they're
I
like, so
kind of
we
glossed
removed
over
this
some of them
part of the
because there's
kit,
so
but
many
that part of the
details
kit is not
going
even
to.
used
Go and
to
check those out
create
for
the
all of
problem
the
that
very
you are
specific
experiencing to
changes,
begin
that
with.
we're
It's
making
like
come
it doesn't
season
do
9,
anything.
and
It's
can't
like
wait for you to see.
Yeah.
straight up
to
not even
try
a
out
nerf.
all these
It
new
just removes the functionality that wasn't used.
Take a bow.
They
yeah, the
streamlined
patch
an
notes are
ability that
absolutely
they didn't
massive
need
this
the
season.
streamlining.
They won't be
But
hitting in all languages following the
it's
stream.
like
We're
you're
looking to
saying as
have
well,
those,
shifting. I mean,
published just
to be
prior
fair,
the start
I do
of,
like the fact
season
that
on
Shadow
July
Clone does
1st,
more
so
than just
some
damage.
languages
Having
will be
DR on
available, but
clone means
expect
that
most
you
of
can be
them,
used for more
towards
things
the
than
start of the season
just
because the patch notes are
like a
absolutely
damage
massive.
tool
So
of
like
sorts,
Charles said,
right?
dive
If
into
you're
them, get those
GR
changes,
or or
And
whatever.
Charles, can we get that Spiritborn unique name one more time?
Balazan's
But-
Max Latel.
Balazan's Max Latal.
The
You're
clone
first.
builds
Man's
didn't
a
need
pro.
a damage
Man's a pro.
nerf. They needed
So
a functionality
as we've gone through the
change.
stream, we've got all these great components.
And
Yeah.
just
We've
nerfing the
got
damage of
the
Shadow
Project
Clone right
Strong
now
Rooms,
is
we've got
not
Escalating
gonna do that.
Nightmares. We have all these excellent balance changes and class updates coming in. So it feels like we've got this nice cake, and we just need
Like
a
you
little
would have
bit
to
of
increase the
frosting and
base
some
damage or
sprinkles just to-
something
just
of
to,
those abilities
finish
that
it
are
up.
affected
So I
by
know
this by the
Azen,
equal
you've
amount
got
that you're
some nice
nerfing
little
Shadow Clone to
tidbits,
create
to
an
get into
equilibrium
towards the
that
end,
where it's
in
like
terms of system updates.
kind
So
of balanced around
what can
the
we look
point,
forward
like
to in
part where you
Season
want it
9?
to be.
Yeah, so not only have we done all these awesome, specific Season 9 things, we've also done our best to improve the game eternally or in an evergreen fashion or permanently, however you want to say it. So yeah, a big thing that we learned from Season 8 is that we really like it when we feel like we have different ways we can play the season. So in Season 8 specifically, you went into the Apparition Incursions, and it sometimes ended up feeling while you were leveling like you had to do it a bit more than you actually wanted to. Like you'd rather go do some other things. And so the way we want to change that in Season 9 and going forward forever is elites and bosses are now going to grant seasonal reputation regardless of what the season is. It doesn't matter what the season theme is. You can always make progress towards reputation by killing those strong enemies. So that should make it so it doesn't matter if you're going to the seasonal activity, you're still going to make progress. The seasonal activity or whatever exists in a season will still be a really fantastic source of that specific seasonal power and rep and currency and what have you. But we want you to feel like you can just take some detours and explore the game at your own pace and in your own way, and the season still recognizes that. And similarly, we had Lair Hordes grant seasonal currency in Season 8 specifically because it was the season of bosses, but we decided to just keep that going forward because basically all roads lead to lair bosses now. Like you're going to find lair keys by doing a variety of activities. And so it felt like a very ubiquitous place for us to imbue seasonal currency into the game as well. And this isn't to say, like, this isn't an exhaustive list, right? Oh, I gotta wave over here. This isn't an exhaustive list. You are still going to be earning extra seasonal reputation and seasonal currency from doing seasonal specific stuff too. So it should just be a much larger pool of ways to play. But yeah, so with that said, let's jump into some of the permanent details or permanent changes and details of the Nightmare Dungeon and Escalation Nightmare systems. So Dan already went over this quite a bit, but I wanted to just talk a little bit more about the why and the how of this all. So we added a bunch of new affixes, positive affixes to Nightmare Dungeons. And the reason why we wanted to do this is because we wanted to make sure that when you're sifting through your different Nightmare Dungeons, it feels like you have different options for how you can make progress for your economy. So you'll notice that these blue affixes, like the Heraldric Materials Reserve, Gem Reserve, Gold Reserve, they're pretty self-explanatory. If you go into those dungeons, you are going to get more materials from the chests that appear, or more gems, or more gold. And there's quite a few of these different positive affixes. And the big impetus behind this is we really wanted you to be able to sift through your Nightmare Dungeons, find the gap in what you're currently looking for. Like, for example, if you want to craft a Heraldric Jewel and you need gem fragments, go find the Heraldric Gem Reserve Nightmare Dungeons and run a bunch of them. And so hopefully this is like a tool that you guys can utilize and really patch up those problems. And secondarily, we also know that if players are going to be going into Nightmare Dungeons much more frequently going forward, that there should probably be a lot of replayability and variety in the negative affix experience too. So it kind of feels a little different and cool. So we really took our time. We kind of rebranded, rethemed a bunch of the affixes. We added a bunch of new ones, like Dark Omen is specifically an entirely new one. So be careful going into one of those dungeons. And we also added many more of the potential elite affix, the elite affixes that can appear on Nightmare Dungeons, like for example, Waller, Vampiric is another one. And this is all just, again, to make Nightmare Dungeons feel like there's more variety as you're playing through all of them. Awesome. So yeah, I think we can go forward here and check out what a actual Heraldric Reserve looks like. Just as a PSA, so if you go in and you're chomping through a Nightmare Dungeon, that's what a Heraldric Reserve will look like. So there will be a bunch of those throughout a Nightmare Dungeon. Make sure to open all those to get your nifty new positive affix rewards. And then on top of that, of course, we have the new permanent addition, the Escalating Sigils, which are just Nightmare Dungeons, but even punchier. So as Dan was saying, we made it so you're getting even more rewards from these things as you're escalating. They're going to raise in difficulty as you go through each escalation, which I would like to point out does mean that you can surpass Torment 4 with these now, which can get very terrifying. And there's also unique affixes that can only appear on Escalating Sigils. And here we have the actual Astaroth affix, or rather the Astaroth list of affixes that we're going to be dealing with when we fight Astaroth. So Dan kind of alluded to this, but we can see that one of the negative affixes here is Meteor Storm. That's an Astaroth-specific affix, and that actually changes the way the Astaroth fight works. And there are quite a few of these. So every time you go in and fight Astaroth, it's going to feel a little different. There's going to be different challenges you have to face. And there's also going to be a lot of really fantastic rewards that he drops too. Like, for example, the Riches of Keys gives you, I think, like Infernal Compasses and Undercity Tributes. And Lord Zier's Offering gives you quite a few keys to go and fight Lord Zier. And, you know, it's all modular, it's all randomized, and it's a lot. It's a lot of rewards, which is great. But it's a lot harder too, which is also fun. But yeah, so that's the overall on these Nightmare Dungeon and Escalating Sigil things. And I just want to say, you know, as one last thing, like I mentioned before, this is something that we want to continuously improve upon because it is such a major new thing. And like, we knew that Nightmare Dungeons needed some love.
Maybe
the
the suspension of bringing real need changes seasons are just not doing it for you.
And we want to continue to foster and cultivate the system.
Yeah,
going forward.
the seasons
so please,
are
any more feedback you have?
seasonal content. Just seems very
All right. And with all
regurgitated.
that said, let's move on to some more
Almost like
general,
maintenance mode type
quality of life updates to the game as a
stuff
whole.
that they do.
So first of all, here
which
we have the
feels
legendary
bad.
item drop updates. So typically in Diablo 4, what we've done is when you go up in Torment tiers, you find more items, but we've decided to make it so you also find a higher quality of items when you go up in Torment tiers as well. This means that as you go from Torment 1 to 2 to 3 to 4, you are going to find more ancestral items and thus also more greater affixes. We wanted to do this because we were finding that people on higher Torment tiers, as characters were getting to 2 and 3, etc., the loot wasn't quite keeping up with the state their character was in and what they expected to receive. And so we're trying this out, and you know, let us know what you think. And I just wanted to do a quick call out that this also applies to lair bosses. Like, it applies to everything, but I wanted to specifically call out that it applies to lair bosses, which is great because now we're going to be finding more ancestral versions of lair boss unique items too. All right. Let's move on
Some
to
more goals
the
your favorite, or
resource
the 5K extra
economy.
5K
There's quite a
goal.
few of
Only need
these
300
here.
for one reroll.
So first of all, we saw that people were not finding as many legendary runes as they would like. It felt too sluggish to get through that journey. So we've kind of done quite a few changes to that overall. Now the Tribute of Harmony, which is specifically the tribute that grants quite a few runes, will grant even more and a higher quality of runes. All Undercity tributes, not just the Tribute of Harmony, will also grant runes. So if you're finding yourself light on runes, going to Undercity is typically a really good place. And then finally, we also increased the quality chance, the chance for legendary runes to drop from fighting lair bosses and their lair boss horde too. So just kind of all throughout the game, that's just a bit better. We've made quite a few improvements to Whisper caches.
Here's what
so
the Whisper
like the gold
changes.
cache is much more lucrative. The material cache is more lucrative. The gem caches are more lucrative. A lot of ancillary stuff just feels better and are better choices than they used to be. We want to make sure that when you're actually looking at the potential Whisper caches, that each of them feels like it would actually make a difference. And so that's the big impetus there. We have made our jewelers across Sanctuary adopt more business-friendly practices. Their cash is no longer quite as ludicrously expensive, and it also drops significantly more rings and amulets. So they're a little bit nicer now. And then Infernal Hordes also is going to be dropping more gems. And then finally, something we wanted to add here is there's going to be increased drop rate for Scrolls of Escape, specifically in Hardcore. We found that you weren't getting quite as many as we would like you to in that mode. And so we want to make sure that you have just enough to, you know, go and test yourself against those really challenging lair boss fights when you feel like your build is ready. All right, and let's dive into into our next slide here. So this is just to go over, basically, this is a lot of information.
Sorry guys, I'm kind of just like typing
let's
some
just
stuff
talk
now.
briefly about what is permanent and what is exclusive to Season 9, just kind of as a recap. So, permanent to both the Eternal and Seasonal realms, now and forever, we have the Nightmare Dungeon updates. So you are going to be finding Herodric Strong Rooms on both the Eternal and the Seasonal realms. You're going to be able to go into Escalating Nightmares in both. You're going to find all these new Nightmare Dungeon affixes and Escalating Nightmare affixes permanently in the game. And of course, all the new uniques for each class are permanent. And then exclusive to Season 9 is the quest line, Exploring the Sins of the Herodrum. The Herodric Spellcraft, you know, the catalysts and the infusions and the arcana, the Herodric Jewels, And then, of course, the seasonal reputation board and the rewards from that are exclusive to Season 9. All right, so that about wraps it up for the evergreen updates here for Season 9. And just to kind of touch on the PTR and the learnings and kind of our thoughts and our culture on PTR. So we already kind of went over the systems updates that were changed since PTR. I'll go over them again very briefly. So lair bosses now have an increased chance to drop legendary runes. There's a increased drop rate to Scrolls of Escape in Hardcore, and there was the massive pass on all things Nightmare Dungeon to improve the tuning and make affixes meaner and stuff like that. But I just wanted to take a moment to say that the PTR for us as a team is just amazing. We really cannot stress this enough. Like, when the PTR goes live and you guys start talking about the game, the air in the office is electrifying. We're all so excited to see what you guys have to say, and we're just, we're running around, we're talking to each other, we're like, oh, like, this is, did you see this? Like, maybe we should change this, or, et cetera, et cetera. And it's just great. It's great for the vibes. It's great for the game. And just a heartfelt thank you from us to you for helping us make Diablo as good as it can possibly be.
Yeah, we absolutely love reading all the feedback, watching videos that people post, or posting online on social media or other places for feedback on our forums. It's really amazing to see players like trying out the new stuff and giving feedback on what's working, what's not. And then we really do listen and adjust based on that. We try to find the best ways of delivering a really high quality experience every season. And the PTR is really instrumental for us to be able to do that.
It absolutely is. And like, this season was wild for PTR updates. We made so many changes, and it was just super helpful to hear everything you guys had to say.
Yeah, thank you so much for that. Like, being able to have players jump in, test the content, also gives us such a better feel for how things are going to go in season launch. So then we know we can take a confident step forward, knowing that our players who are just diehard Diablo 4 fans have given us their greatest feedback. And then when the season launches on July 1st, we now know that we already have all these problems addressed. We've got these bugs that are taken care of, and even just like in terms of like bugs or challenging or the unique that got entirely overhauled. We now have that chance to make those changes ahead of time. So yeah, from the bottom of our hearts, thank you so much for jumping in
They
and
can't
testing
say that
and
they
giving us all your
addressed
feedback,
all the
because
bugs.
We appreciate it, and it does.
No,
help
of course
the
they
game,
didn't. Of course,
a lot better.
of course they did.
And that
Don't
brings us
phrase it like
closer
that.
to the
Like,
end of our show.
it's
We've got some
bad.
excellent Q&A lined up for you. So we're going to bring Dan back from Albany. And we do have a few questions lined up. The first thing that we do want to ask our devs here is, for the Heroic Spellcraft, are those powers account bound? Are they partition bound? Or do you need to level them up specifically for each alt?
Yeah, so they're going to be partition bound. So on, for example, seasonal softcore, if you make a new character, you'll have all your progress from your previous seasonal softcore character. So it's partition bound. If you make a new seasonal hardcore character, you would have to find the new Heroic Spellcraft, but then any future seasonal hardcore character you make would have access to that same progression.
Awesome. Nice. Okay, we've got our first question coming in from the Sanctuary Discord. Getty asks, how does the team currently feel about boss design? Are invulnerable phases something you're looking to continue with in future bosses? And that's an interesting one, because the Astaroth fight that just came back does have some interesting mechanics that aren't quite invulnerability, but it's more of like a segmented phase. So.
Yeah, that's something that we've been talking about a lot internally, with the new changes to the layer bosses. I think it's something that sometimes it's important, like it's cool for like the vibes of the fight if a boss has an invulnerability phase, but we also recognize that like once you get to a point where you feel like you can beat a boss, sometimes the invulnerability phase can feel like an obstacle, potentially an unwanted obstacle. And so the team has definitely been exploring some ways that we can create that similar feeling without necessarily putting a hard stop on a fight.
Yeah, there's definitely some examples even already in the game where it's like, hey, if you're able to kind of beat a DPS check and you're able to get the boss like down to a certain amount or kill it before the phase, then you're able to do that. That's definitely one good example that we're definitely looking at kind of replicating in some other boss fights.
Nice. Okay, Charmed Chaos. Does the strong room time count against the dungeon's completion time, or are they separate?
Dan, you want to take that one?
I'm thinking about this right now, and I am not entirely certain. um, my guess is that it does count towards the dungeon completion time, but yeah, I think we're gonna have to, go back to the team and post an update online about that.
Cool. I guess it's a philosophical question of, is the strong room its own realm? Like, are you, defying the logic of where you are in the dungeon? Or, I mean, you do blast through it pretty quick, which is good. But then, you might take your time leaving it or going back in to find some more goodies. So, yeah, that's an excellent question. I've got another one from Why So Blue Panda Bear. Don't be sad, Panda Bear. At Diablo, do we still get Obdicite in these escalation Nightmare Dungeon runs?
Somebody said Nightmare Dungeons don't have a
you do.
completion time.
There's also
the pit has a
even
timer, not
some-
Nightmare
or not
Dungeons.
some. There is an affix that increases
Stronghold
the amount of
does,
Obdicite
but-
you get. And again, also the escalating
Maybe that's what he meant.
Nightmare
I don't know.
Dungeon runs scale. So scale with rewards, excuse me, and difficulty. But as you go up and up and up, you just get more Obdicite and the affixes become better. So if you find like the extra Obdicite affix later on, it's like showering Obdicite. It's a lot.
That's unreal. That's absolutely unreal. This one's for you. Might be for Aislinn. The Bird King. Has anything been confirmed about GA or general greater affix rates going up at higher torment tiers?
Oh, yeah. So that slide we had talking about the increased quality per torment, they will be going up, yes. You're going to be finding more ancestral items, and so consequentially you're going to be finding more greater affix items and items with more greater affixes as well.
Unreal. Thank you for that, Aislinn. Scream Hard. At Diablo, question for Q&A. Will we start to see seasonal power systems incorporated into the base game? There have been several that I was fond of that could add depth.
Yeah, I can talk a bit about that. Obviously, every season when we make some of these powers, like the Heraldic Spellcraft or the Witchcraft powers and the boss powers in the past, they were exclusive to that season.
Yep.
That being said, we are a team with a bunch of designers who are always looking for good ideas, and especially good ideas that have proven to work in the game. And so we definitely, when we're looking at making future systems and future improvements to the game, we are absolutely looking at some of the best performing seasonal powers and thinking about how we can integrate that into the game. So it's very likely you'll see some of the better received and more popular seasonal powers potentially return in the future. But for the time being, they do still exist just in their season. But they are absolutely still on our radar to bring back in other forms and other ways for future content.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I get this other question about all seasonal stuff every time. The answer is always the same too. I
Having
know.
seasonal powers that we have, and then look at the favorite ones. Like such a massive part of the mechanics of this season are just already. going to be
we might have,
permanent and
if
eternal and
something,
seasonal realms, which is so nice.
so definitely
really
sometime,
just
maybe in the
those
future.
power systems are really the seasonal parts, and a lot of our
Something
focus
like that.
on seasonal development is plussing
Skill
up
deal.
base aspects of the game, like the
I mean,
Nightmare
I get that's a
Dungeon
real
system as a
difficult
whole.
question though,
We're
because
looking
if they
at
do
making
have
sure
something
that part of
planned,
the
they
game
can't
is improved
say
and
that it's gonna
evergreen.
be in case
And
it's
then a
not.
lot of the
Right.
powers
And
if they
Yep.
don't,
are
they
things
don't
that
want to
are
be like, no,
exclusive
we're not
for the
going to use
season,
something that's
but we're
good.
still looking out for
like,
good designs
it's a
and ways
it's a real
of,
difficult question to
bringing back the popular
actually
ones
answer
for
though.
the future.
Hell yeah, absolutely, Charles. Mippy
But it
at
does
Diablo,
more
are
or
the
less sound like,
escalating Nightmare
yeah,
sigils
but,
craftable or only droppable? Important question for leveling. I think I might send that one to you, Dan.
Yeah, that's another one I'm not sure about, unfortunately.
So I believe they should only be able to
Yeah.
drop from the Heraldic Strong Rooms. That's where you'll be finding
Yeah.
escalation sigils.
Right.
Oh no.
And I think in
So, I just to the point, if you want to try to be farming them, you can craft Nightmare Sigils, trying to find ones that have the Heraldic Strong Room
Yes.
guaranteed on there,
Right.
And then run the ones with the Strong Room. So it's a little bit, you can't maybe craft them directly, but you can craft ways of farming them.
You can definitely go out of your way to find Heraldic Strong Rooms, which then brings you to Escalation Nightmares.
Yeah, and if you're looking for those pre-torment Nightmare Escalation Sigils, you're going to be getting that from the Seasonal Reputation track. So before you are pre-torment, if you want to play those and get used to them before you actually get to face off against Astaroth in post-torment levels, you will be getting that from the Seasonal Reputation track. So look out for those. The Creether Cool name.
Ooh.
How do you come up with the names for your uniques? Some of them are really interesting, and some are hard to pronounce.
That's true.
Are the names coming from lore, or just did you find something cool that ended up fitting with the names?
A lot of times they come from lore. A lot of our uniques are handled by our wonderful narrative designers and quest designers who really have a firm grip on the lore and the world building of Sanctuary and all the characters and factions within there.
Sorry,
And
I'm just like
a lot of
reading
them do
stuff
come from
now.
that. Some of them are a bit, maybe a bit more generic.
I'm
I'd say
reading
like
the Diablo Twitch
ones
chat
that
right now.
maybe
and it's-
don't tie to a specific person, but a lot of them do, and that's handled by our wonderful narrative and quest designers.
Unreal. I love that. Yeah, like Death Mask of near my truck.
Near my truck,
like,
yeah.
Yeah. Chat was picking up also on the phonetic of it's near my truck.
Oh,
Which I was
yeah,
cracking
near
up.
my truck.
That is how we.
We've been saying
Near
that
my
a lot.
truck, yes.
leading up to this stream. Awesome. Okay. Oh, Draketh90. Will you consider allowing other boss fights to be customized with affixes like Astaroth? Sounds like a cool way to keep layered bosses dynamic and fresh.
Oh yeah, yeah. We're really excited about the system with Astaroth, where he's going to feel different each time you fight him. So that's definitely something that we are always looking to imbue more replayability into the game, because Diablo is just lives and dies by like how much fun it is to go and do stuff over and over. And so that's definitely something that we can take a look at in the future, and like different mechanics to ensure that fighting layer bosses or fighting other bosses in the game feel exciting and different each time you go in and fight them. And Astaroth is a great example of that, and we're excited for you to try it out.
Unreal. And our last question comes from either Jajapur or Yayapur or Hahapur, depending on the pronunciation. This one's for you, Charles, and it's less of a question, more of a request, I think.
Okay.
When can we expect more skill-changing uniques like the new Necro one? Give us one for multiple golems with a little smiley face.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I mean, so obviously every season we are making a new unique for every class. And
Why
we
would you
really
want to have
try
more
focus
golems
on
of the
in
one
giving
ability, like
brand
the
new
one
ways
ability
of
that just
playing,
gets stuck everywhere?
or ways to kind of revitalize existing
Why would you
builds.
want
Like
him?
obviously golem builds
More of him.
exist, so it is absolutely valid that we could potentially see one in the future that allows you to have additional golems. I can't specifically promise that just yet, but we're working on making brand new cool stuff every season.
Awesome. Sweet. Well, that takes us to the end of the Q&A. Thank you all for your incredible questions, and thank you to the community team for sourcing those. We really appreciate all the things that you want to know about the game. So yeah, and that brings us to the end of the stream. Keep in mind, we do have patch notes dropping following the stream, so check those out for any changes. And we did have the season overview.
That's what I
blog
want to see.
Past Tuesday. So for
That's
all
all I
the,
really care about
all
right
the
now.
needs, all the things you want to know, you'll find it there. But also, hopefully you've claimed your Sorcerer staff already. But if you want more Twitch drops, oh, actually, you know what? Before that, we sort of addressed this on the stream. Dan touched on it, but for Season 9, the pet that you'll be able to earn from the season journey, claim Iris if you haven't already. But this is Dante. So if all the keen-eyed viewers, you've probably seen Dante
Love the pet.
running around, begging
Such
the
an
streets.
awesome
This is
pet.
what he'll do when you hit the pet emote. So
That
here's
is so
Dante.
cool.
He is a good boy, even though
pet
he
the
does
dog.
look pretty menacing. He'll definitely keep people off your lawn, that's for sure. But yeah, finishing Chapter 6 of the season journey will earn you Dante. And remember, you don't have to complete all of the tasks in Chapter 6. You just need to complete enough to hit the reward level.
What's like
So,
the
yeah, be
quickest
sure
way
go
to
and claim him.
find
And if
the
you
patch
haven't
notes?
already,
Like when
be
they
sure to
drop.
claim Iris.
Is there a page I
for
can
Season
refresh?
of Blile's Return already. Here's our season overview. Take a screenshot of this. This is hosted in our blog. This gives you all the details.
It always
you
takes me
need,
a while, and then
for
someone links
season
it.
9
I'm like,
since
oh,
the
there it is.
Rodrum gives you a great overview. Look at that. So you
The
can definitely
general
check
one,
those
it's
out.
normally icy as well. But
And if you enjoyed the
These
Twitch
links
drops
be like,
on
hey,
this stream,
here it is.
launching with our season on July 1st
Wonder
all
what
the
the
way through
secret
July
is.
19th, you can watch at least 3 hours of any eligible Diablo 4 content
I
creator.
like the girth
and
of this
you can
crossbow.
grab the Glensoul Arbalest
It's
crossbow
very
for the
thick.
Rogue. If you want some more details on that, we've got a Twitch drop blog.
I mean-
match
I'm
the rest of
Well,
my set.
I mean,
Where
let's-
do you put the
3
arrow?
hours,
I mean,
with
let's
eligible
be honest. I mean,
content
let's-
in the Diablo-
I mean, let's be
Diablo
honest.
4
Aren't most
directory.
marksman builds
Grab
usually
that
like
sweet,
basically
sweet
up close
crossbow.
anyways? You
Yeah,
just bash them in the head
absolutely.
with the
Go up for
crossbow.
that.
You don't need arrows.
And then
You
we
just
do
walk
have,
up- you just
very
walk up and-
special delivery
with the
because
crossbow.
also
Listen,
July
not only did you
1st
not
is
have a
Charles
release
Dunn's
mechanism for
birthday.
that, but you also didn't have anywhere to notch the
Happy
arrow
birthday
at
to
all.
Charles Dunn. With the season
Oh no, they
journey,
know.
very special
They know.
thank
Oh,
you,
Adam
Mr.
was up.
Yeah,
Yes, my birthday is July 1st, so
Yeah.
we're launching a whole Diablo season just for my birthday.
Yes,
so,
it's all for Charles Dance.
Yeah. Adam, I was getting ready for right at the end, and then Adam popped in. I was like, okay,
Yes.
now it's cake time. So there's Adam.
Thank you so much.
It wouldn't be a stream without a surprise Adam appearance. Love that. So you can celebrate the launch of the stream, and you can celebrate the launch of the season and Charles Dunn's birthday, which is fantastic. And then following the stream, if you did have some more questions or you just want some more Diablo 4 content, Aislinn Hall is going to be joining Nacho in the Sanctuary Discord for another edition of Burning Questions. So Aislinn's doing double duty today. Right after the stream, she's running back to her desk and then jumping in the Sanctuary Discord to answer all those burning questions with Nacho. And we will be rating Nacho's stream following this one, so you can stick around and just check it out here if you'd like that as well.
Yeah.
I do want to give a huge thank you to everyone involved with the stream. Thank you to production for putting everything together. Also, for those of you at home, thank you for being here and joining with us. I can't believe, I think Rich called it out. It's our 29th stream for Diablo 4, which is just crazy. Dan sticks around 3 hours later on the East Coast, so Dan's been staying up late with us throughout this week. So you all don't get to see how busy Aislinn, Charles, and Dan all are, and they dedicate a lot of time out their schedule to be here. So we really do appreciate you being here, and thanks for tuning in. So July 1st, Season 9 Sins of the Harajam is launching. Check out those patch notes following the stream, and we'll see you all in Sanctuary.
Awesome.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
See ya.
All right. Are we going to Nacho Chips? Looks like. Isn't Nacho one of the newer partners, if I'm not mistaken?
Yep. Nacho
Okay.
is a Sanctuary, long-term Sanctuary community member, then turned
God.
mod, turned partner.
I'll give her a follow.
Never interacted
Hello,
with
you
him, but-
guys. Welcome. I'm so sorry. We raided into ourselves, and that was very confusing for a second. But welcome in, you guys. So
Alright,
nice
so
to meet
patch
you.
notes.
I am Nacho Chips X. You
Um,
can call me Nacho. It's such a pleasure to meet you guys.
Holy, that's a
I've
lot
been
of spam.
streaming Diablo 4 since the
That is. Hold on, let me-
Everyone follow spamming. Let's follow spam.
Change my YouTube setting real quick. I think run my regular music now, but I can't do that. I'm on YouTube, so I gotta that setting real quick.
Monk. All right, let's see if we get the patch notes. So, real quick, overall, are you feeling positive or are you feeling negative right now? What's the general vibe?
So
Negative.
wow, Matthias negative? Matthias?
I know.
This-
Oh,
What?
No, it's not.
But-
I was a passionate. But no.
Matthias
Shows
of all
off.
people? I thought that was good. Like, oh, okay. We're really doomed now because usually Matthias can find like the brightest thing or something. He's like,
Oh, we got the patch notes.
we do? Okay, hold up. Can someone give me a link?
Yeah. It's
Technical
loading.
Ghost, what's up, man? Also, one of our newer Diablo partners as well.
Hey, tactical. What's up, dude?
Yeah, man.
Wait, do people even know who we are? Because we're not in the title, Monka.
Yeah, my fault. Let me see.
I linked them to you on Discord, the patch notes.
Alright.
Death Trap.
With Ava and Matthias Gamer.
Wow, okay. Death Trap nerf.
Yeah, let
300
me-
to 200%.
So it's like
Hold on, I'm trying to pull it up real quick. Age.
Zero X beyond 5 now increase the death threat to be reset by 1%. Huh? Wait, this is actually quite. Wait, hold on. So it looks like previously it gave additional pull in, right? Now it just has a chance to reset, which does nothing. But if that is gone, isn't Supreme triggered whenever whenever the enemy resists a pull in?
Got with the real quick. So, I guess
Holy, the key passive changes.
the Blaze said it doesn't matter anyway. There are 28 viewers. Yeah, I appreciate you being one of them. Probably not the response you were expecting.
Wait, so okay, which end do we want to start?
Okay, I'll go back to the top.
All right, so I'm at. All
What?
right, so I guess put another string there. So we got Advanced Flurry.
So
That's previous. So wait, is the blue new or no?
yeah, it is new. That's completely new. So basically, instead of getting energy back or like reducing the cost, you store the energy up to 3 times. So you're storing 30, and then you have to cost something else to get the 30. That feels really clunky.
I think that's kind of like you think that's kind of like a way to, get this to remain in close quarters combat in a sense, because close quarters combat kind of plays into that. Cast something else to get such and such bonus. Not that I agree with it. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's just I don't think it would hit. It would work for what's it called? For combo points. For combo point build, this is actually a pretty decent change, right? Like you basically store the energy that you would have had, and you get it all back when you cast the first basic skill after. I mean, that could be fine.
Yeah, but if you're playing combo points,
But,
you don't care about energy anyway.
yeah.
So I'm like,
it's like we're solving a problem we don't have ever.
right.
It's weird.
In combination with the new unique, this upgrade made it harder to achieve a power up state. This change hopes to compensate for that while granting a similar bonus.
No,
No, yeah, I don't understand that.
no, this doesn't do the same thing at all.
Yeah, I was making sure I was reading that right. I'm like, did I read that right? Even on tape should have followed. Okay, so we got the clone shadow reduction here.
Okay, so the
No, sorry.
so the clone nerf is rough because we not only do we lose 20% from the actual passive, but we also lose 20% from the actual scaling, the base scaling.
You mean 33%? Because
are we getting any of that back in terms of like anything else? Let me hold on. So yeah, Shadow Glow Engulfing is in his Visage granted 20% damage. Oh, this is Visage of Goons then? From D3? Visage. I don't know. I saw that word and I instantly thought about that legendary D3. Guess we know where they got the idea from. Death Trap no longer reduces cooldowns from kills or overpower baseline rank 5. Killing or overpowering an enemy with Death Trap has a 20% chance to reset its cooldown. Okay. Skirmix beyond 5 increases chance of Death Trap.
Here's the problem with DT, right? So we have Supreme, which exclusively works off of enemies resisting the pull-in. So we're losing 1 hit of Supreme, and we are like getting our damage reduced from 300 to 200.
That's pretty big.
I mean, it's good in terms of overall game balance, I think.
Yeah,
but,
I think.
But I guess I feel like if we're just looking at, I haven't looked at Victimized yet or any of the key passive changes, but like if we're just, before we get to key passes, if we're just looking at it as is, it feels like everything took a step back, including like regular builds that aren't ultimates other than Renovails, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. I skipped ahead a little bit just to talk about DT as well. So we're losing from 300 to 200%. That is more or less offset because Ice in the Dark now always increases your damage by 40 to 60%.
So they fixed Eyes in the Dark.
No, but at least it's like
He's like, no,
at least
not really,
but at least it's like a 60% number. So basically, the damage we saw on PDR versus this, we're gonna lose Supreme, which is bad, but it's not. It basically just increases our it reduces the damage we would be dealing versus bosses and unstoppable enemies.
Well, I mean, you'll still be able to hold down right click though. The gameplay doesn't change, does it?
Gameplay is exactly the same. Like functionality of the build has not changed with this at all.
So
It's
I mean,
just-
you'll kind of still be. I don't really see a reason why you wouldn't go Death Trap still. I guess.
Yeah,
I mean-
yeah, we need to get through all the notes to say that.
Okay, gotcha. I'm sorry. Right. Dang, Matthias. I don't know if I
Eagle
decided
horn
you,
change
Matthias.
is
I don't know.
hilarious.
This is
yeah, I love it as well.
This is alter ego Matthias here, man. Matthias with the thug life glasses.
Alright, so what does
Vic-
Victimize do now then?
Yeah. Dealing direct damage to a vulnerable enemy has up to a 50% chance to cause an explosion, dealing 200% of the same damage type around them and surrounding enemies. Enemies hit by victimized explosion take 75%. Okay. Increased damage from you for 3 seconds. Is this a scalable thing? Like with more vulnerable damage, or how does this work? So
No, it looks like a flat one, right? Because it doesn't say anything about.
yeah, so I'm
What do you guys
yeah.
think the 200% is? Is it 200% based on what you dealt, or is it just 200% weapon damage or whatever?
It's just 200% damage payload, so it's instead of skill damage, like you would see on your skill, it would just be 200%. So it's 200% times the weapon damage times all of the other multipliers they have.
Yeah, because it's the same wording here, dealing 90% of the same damage type around them too.
Right.
So it's still this is still proc damage basically, and not from your not anything. So basically generic damage, right? Which means actually considering how well, I mean, they did buff it to 200%, but it was still pretty shit though. So I mean, the only thing that really matters is this.
And I actually don't think that's necessarily bad. Like I it's different, right? I'm not super convinced that this is necessarily
Hold on a second.
like a
He said,
game changer.
he said
Right?
so
'Cause, like,
Druids.
we have QCQ.
The Druid Sork and Spiritborn top classes along with Necromsher. I have no idea. Quite a bit of changes happen. It's kind of hard to say right now. I think everybody's just looking through the patch notes, so we really don't know yet. We'll have a tier list for you guys out on like Sunday night or something after we kind of talk amongst all the class reps for Maxroll. We'll give you an idea.
I
So
feel like
yo,
Victimize as soon as you get it on level 25 should be insane, right?
yeah.
Yeah. So it just should.
If
Yeah.
you get a curse touch on that, and you're kind of golden.
Yeah, so I guess I mean, but at this point, you wouldn't. You're not building around this anymore. The 200% damage, because that doesn't scale anymore. So like, because that doesn't scale anymore, you basically are just going to take skill stuff because you want to buff your own damage once they got hit by a victimized explosion. So basically, you would build it as if you're building for a regular build, technically, but you just slap on victimize.
It's like close quarters combat without the condition of needing to scale it, more or less, and just slightly weaker.
So yeah, and I guess you could get a little bit of proc damage from the AoE, not much, but it it's something, right? It's better than nothing. So yeah, so I guess with that being said, now we have other options for basic attacks, specifically for like the marksman basic attacks, like I'm not gonna say force rail, but obviously it's in the category. You're not gonna do that, but yeah. But I mean, now Heartseeker has a different key path that it can build into, which is thank God. So you can actually play a ranged Heartseeker going into next season. Now, how good will this be? I have no idea, but don't expect it to be meta or anything. Just understand that the play style is gonna feel a lot better to play, but this ain't gonna be no S tier or whatever type. Functionality.
The buffs is too small for it to be like to changing the pendulum at all.
Right, but it is a playstyle change, which I welcome. But yeah, um, I wonder if there is some sort of scaling though. Like maybe did they forget this part of it?
I doubt it, because the problem is anytime anything scales now, it causes other issues that might be too large for the scope of this. It's basically supposed to be you are dealing 75% more damage against enemies that you've hit this with, right? It's kind of in line with other
This
damage
this
multipliers
feels
that we
like
have.
this
Like,
kind of feels like momentum in terms of just like a flat damage increase sort of thing, just without the aspect to go along with it.
which, yeah. Which, if you're looking at it, like, it feels, when you're comparing them, it feels kind of weird, because this is probably going to have an ICD, right? Just because the 200% damage is, like, it's not going to happen every fucking second, right? It's not going to do it. But the problem that I see is, like, why would you pick this over something that buffs you, like QCQ or momentum?
Well,
Because you're
yeah.
getting more benefits out of those.
Um,
You're getting a 90% multi for QCQ. Like, maybe, I mean, sure, for distance build, like you're saying, right? Like Heartseeker, whatever. I can see this having like real value.
yeah, because then you can also use like Deadeye, which is another 40%
Yeah.
multiplier. So like that's
Whereas,
so like that's kind of like technically it's not really his aspect or whatever like that, but being able to make use of that whereas you couldn't before is actually, I won't say big deal, but I mean it's enough to consider this over close quarters combat for like, let's say, Heartseeker, if that makes sense. That I guess that's kind of where I'm getting at. Like, is this like a like a game changer in terms of like, oh, we have a new S tier build or something like that? No, obviously not. But I do welcome the stylistic. Yeah, and I guess you could. I haven't read the rest of it, but I don't know. I mean, even Blaze. Well, yeah, I guess Blaze Shift actually can kind of like, because I mean, the thing about it is that like, okay, creation damage from you. Okay, so I guess the explosion isn't from you. Is Pain Gorge? I guess the Pain Gorge proc isn't from me. That's from the glove. So I guess it's just more so now I have to kind of figure out what it means now. I'm saying not what it means now, but like what is stuff considered from you that would buff the damage of victimize as well, or what gets the victimized damage buff here. Because it says from you, but we all know there's stuff. What that actually means at the end of the day, Peacher says Rip Shadow Clone. It kind of needed to happen, just not in the way that they did it. The way that they did it is not the route they really should have went with it, honestly.
I mean, honestly, like if you look at the calcs we did or whatever, right? Like we're looking at the strength, like the relative strength of Clone. Clone just took a nosedive from doing, let's say you were doing 100 bill DPS, you are down to 50 now with the changes. You're more or less half the base scaling of it.
Would Clone be worth it still in some builds though? Guess with that being said.
Yeah. But like stuff like that is really struggling, such as, I mean, physical or like any variation of normally imbued TB, or like Dance of Knives, like anything like that, just lost half of his damage. I've not obviously read the rest of the patch notes, so I can't say. There are some things I've started scrolling down that is looking pretty exciting.
Sorry,
I'll changed, but
I'll kind of get there. I'm not taking my time, but like, sorry, close quarters combat. So I actually made this. I'm sure other people did too, but I remember bringing this feedback about how all the other key passives can kind of like get capped a lot easier without having to like temper all the close, all the stat or like that. And so I guess that's what this is here, right? So basically now you don't have to temper as many close damage on your gear to be able to cap it. Probably none. You could probably get it just from Paragon and be capped. Maybe one roll or something like that, or Paragon from cap, which is quality of life change, I guess. Not really a buff, but a quality of life change. Or indirect buff, I guess. Precision.
You need what, 450? I think now? No. No, you need 180, right?
I think so.
180% damage.
Peach is on stream. Peach, do you know? Off the top of your head? Or Matthias, do you know?
You should be double of 90, right? So 190.
So I'm really sad about the precision. Why from 20 to 100?
So you can cap it easier? I don't know. Like,
But no, but
Yeah.
I mean, no, but okay,
makes
so
no sense.
no, but any precision build I test on PTR, I didn't roll a single. I didn't temper a single crit damage. Not like
Yeah,
when
but you
when it
can
was
go-
20%. When it was 20%, I didn't temper not a single crit damage on any of my pieces. In fact, I only rolled one critical strike damage as a stat.
Did you use combat glyph?
Close. Oh, you mean the combat glyph? I did, but if I would have rolled 3, like just roll, not temper, just roll 3 crit damage stats on my gear, I could have taken away combat glyph and still be capped.
Yeah, so now you need nothing.
But why? Why was this the change? I guess this is my question.
It reduces the requirement for it, I guess, and it opens up more possibilities.
But
to
you're gonna be
use
using
the map a
Skyhunter
little
for the
bit,
most
but it's
part.
like,
I
makes no
mean,
sense, yeah.
Skyhunter is like, that's the point of precision builds is Skyhunter. So Skyhunter caps you by itself.
Yeah.
Precision
These
needed.
changes are for casuals because it's like you want to get the most value out of these key passives as soon as possible. Like if you're,
But you're
as soon as
gonna
you
get
pick up-
that with Skyhunter. The moment you drop the Skyhunter, you're capped almost practically.
Yeah, I guess
Skyhunter,
my
combat
point is,
glyph,
like,
and
at
then you're
level
done.
30. Like at level 30, you're not gonna have a lot of crit damage, so then you get the same value out of precision. Then because now otherwise, if they
Well,
didn't do this change, victimize would be unbelievably strong.
Okay.
In comparison.
Well, for early game, okay, okay. Early game, I can see that. Like early game, I can see that.
I think it's like, I mean, it's not.
I
We
feel like
need
it
more-
makes 0 difference late in game, and it makes a lot of difference early game, so it's fine.
I guess my
It does
thought
add
is
a little
that
bit of difference
we-
end game though.
it
'cause
needed-
you can run damage to Dark Shroud,
but precision needed
so you
4.
actually gain damage.
It is basically close quarters combat with extra steps. Like, why didn't they? I said not why. I mean, yeah, why didn't they? Like, if they were gonna make any changes to any of the key passives, like specifically like in terms of how it works or anything, like this was the patch to do it, right? They didn't do anything with precision. Like, why would I want to deal damage every 4 times when I can deal damage every time with close quarters combat? Like,
Pretty much.
and this is better because I get something a little bit more valuable other than being able to permanently crit when I can permanently crit anyways because I'm the problems Captain Crit in the first place. So like, what's the point of precision? As long as combo points is as bad as it is, what's the point of precision? Now, as long like if combo points was good, I wouldn't be saying anything. Precision would be fine. But
Yeah, it's weird in a space where we now got the updated Victimize to have this as it is, because you gain more damage running the new Victimize than you would running this, regardless of these like. Because how much damage do you get from precision? Is it 3-5 multi? I don't even remember. Like,
360%.
360.
yeah, so instead of okay, so it's still a little bit weaker, but it's not a lot weaker.
Well, precision is good
yeah.
for combo points. That's about it.
You said
Yeah.
no. You said no. Well, I mean, like, but keep in mind your pocket precision every 4th time. So like 360 divided by 4. So technically speaking, victimize will still be stronger. I mean, unless you want to count the whole like double dipping from trick attacks to precision. Still, there is that going on. Unless they fix that, but I doubt it.
I mean, the 3. I think we're getting stuck at this a little bit too long, but like
I'm sorry, but I mean, this is what we do, right?
90%, right? It's at 90% on average
Yeah.
for Victimize and for precision, and Victimize is 75% on average. So it's like it's still slightly more damage to go precision.
But I still get at least a little bit of a proc on top of that. Maybe that I'm not saying I'll make it the 15%, but I mean that would be better for speed farming than waiting, than waiting to actually deal damage every 4th, right? You see what I'm saying? So even if it is technically overall, but like efficient wise, you're not going to want to deal damage every 4th time. you just take close quarters combat. And in reality, I would rather build, let's say, I don't know, rapid fire, even with this being the case, victimize, because then you can actually play at range and deal damage every time. I don't know, and then you have some sort of, I don't know. We'll see. But sorry, I'll go on. I'm sorry. I'm just kind of. You said you want Heartseeker to be good again. Heartseeker will actually be fun with victimize. Good, I don't know, but it'll be fun. We'll just say that much. We'll just say that much.
The alchemical changes aren't like massive, but they are like, it's a small buff to PI builds. So instead of having a scaling, it's just flat 100% imbue potency, which means like chill builds will actually chill very quickly and what that sort of stuff. And it's also a 1/5 multi. So in total, this is a 3 times multi for, shadow imbuement and poison imbuement, compared to before where it was a 2.5 multi. So it's a small upgrade, a small increase.
Shizzle, what's going on, man? Yeah. I mean,
not
yeah. I guess overall, looking at it, with the exception of precision, honestly, the key passes do look a bit more balanced across the board. Now that Victimize got a fix, but I guess with the decimation of Shadow Clone itself, the core skill builds are just feel like they're, at least just from looking at this, it just feels kind of meh at this point, because you weren't doing any damage at all without Clone, and now that Clone's nerf is like, it needs to be nerfed. Don't get me wrong, but it just feels like there's no compensation, at least not yet. Cold clip. Oh, wait a minute. Okay.
So
40% increased damage. Yeah.
It's different because you lose a little bit of potency for chill, which is fine, whatever.
No one cares about that.
And you gained it, but you only gained the damage bonus against. Oh yeah, you actually do gain. Okay, so it's a 40% damage all the time against bosses, and against everything else is at 20 to 40% against chill or frozen.
Yeah, it's a huge buff for basic.
Cold clip. Yeah. That's or even well, it actually would be a good buff for even like, combo point builds if you wanted to add cold clip into that. But not that you would play combo points, but you would use there's a reason to use this now for combo point builds. But
it's actually like kind of weird because I mean, I would assume that the latter part is just like a weird sentence structure, but your basic skills gain this damage bonus against bosses. So the combo points wouldn't get the 40% multi against bosses, only against, well, it's staggered.
Yeah,
whereas
true.
Basic skills would. So
true.
It's like, it's whatever for
against
combo.
bosses.
Like
it deals full, yeah, it does. That's really good for basic attack builds, yeah. Ravengers.
This is super exciting. So what they did with the change was that you gain a additional charge and you gain a charge when you kill an enemy. That is whatever. But now this says casting Shadow Step increases its damage by 9 to 18% up to 90, which makes it independent on kills. This is massive. It is humongous. It was already a good one, but it was kind of rough because of how it worked with what's it called? With like killing enemies and everything. It made it basically scale negatively with pit tiers. But now instead it's kinda inverse, so it always works. Which means you're shifting damage from the clone to the player and the clone, presumably. As long as this works for the clone. So that's actually a good buff. This is a pretty huge buff. Damage wise, you're not gonna deal that much more damage. You just have like an option for your
quality of life.
Yeah,
huge quality of life. Yeah. Huge, yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, I have yet to play Shadow Step. I want to at some point.
I played it way too much during PTR. It's one of my favorite builds. I love it so much. But it's pretty massive. And you don't turbo scale your Shadow Clone damage. You play double damage on your weapon. You played Apogeic Furor on your amulet, which is averaging the same as Ravager anyway. And that's it. That was like all the specific clone stuff. So it's like it's probably gonna be more or less the same damage, assuming that Ravagers actually do work for the clone like it should, which is pretty nice.
Okay, well, so we know about the death mask. This
Yeah.
part was in the other patch notes before. Health damage or loss, that's also in there, I think. All right, so Eagle Horn now always bounce at least once. What did it bounce off of? Yes. Okay, so is it just gonna bounce without walls now, or?
It's like a boomerang. It just shoots out and comes back.
Ah, okay. That's about damn time. That's all I gotta say. Like, yeah. Now always bounce at least once. Okay, that's cool. And shot stonks. I mean, it'll still be pretty inconsistent in general, but at least now, like, you're not worried about, you know, uh, whether there's a wall that bouncing off of or not. Yeah. So this is how good will this end up being. It's kind of hard to say, but I mean, pin shot stonks. At least, yeah.
If it bounces, so like the big thing here, right, is if it bounces
Off your
the
screen,
same
basically the edge of your
direction
screen.
that you went, right? So like if you shoot forward and it bounces backwards the same direction, that's gonna be good, right? Because you basically get 2 hits for every hit. That's basically what it does, right? But if it bounces goes forward and then bounces like 90 degrees another direction, like it might not be as helpful.
No, but I
So it
mean,
really depends on how it behaves.
but at least at that part, it's quality of life, and the weapon that
Yeah.
or the weapon actually is works in all content. Whether it bounces the way you want is a different story, but at least it works in all content and not not just when walls are present. So there is that. Eyes in the dark, damage bonus reduced from 100 to 200% to whoa. I mean, you guys weren't using it in the PTR anyway, right?
Correct. So
Yeah.
200% was just every 10 seconds. But if you read the next line, you see.
Now always grants the bonus for it. Then only on additional. Okay. Yeah, reading's overrated.
Yeah, true.
True.
Yeah. Well. Okay.
So
I'll let you
basically,
guys
this
talk
means
about this.
that if what it says, it doesn't remove the 10-second cooldown, which means you're still going to get 1 additional DT every 10 seconds, presumably anyway, based off of this. But instead of only giving the bonus whenever you're getting the double cost, you get it all the time. And I mean, sure, like 60% multi is actually like a fair amount. It also solves some masterworking shenanigans and whatnot, but like from a quality of life standpoint, this is like 2 pit tiers worth of damage. I'm not sure I'm running this. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I'm not sure.
Instead of what?
I mean, any
To
of
boss?
like basically like Umbris, for example. Like even Umbris, I would probably arguably still run for all content other than maybe like I mean, other than pushing. Pushing is the only context where I would use this. Because you're gonna struggle to cap armor. You're gonna struggle to cap resistances. You're gonna need to drop a multiplier from your skill or drop unstoppable from your bar to run a 60% multiplier. I don't know if that's worth it.
Mm.
Like, it's worth it for pit pushing, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, it's always going to be because mathematically it's still going to be stronger. But you're giving something up for this. It's not like you're just getting a 60% multi.
I like items should be like this, whereas at least you have options. You can
Yeah.
go more offensive or defensive depending on what you choose.
I kind of agree with that take too.
I agree with it from a perspective of like, if it wasn't the supposed kind of unique for this archetype, I 100% agree with that, right? But I feel like this archetype, like these pants are supposed to be the thing you build a death trap build around, and for it to kind of still feel like, I don't know, it's a little bit weird.
I mean, like Scoundrel's Kiss for rapid fire, like I don't want it to be mandatory. I want it to be like, oh, I could build a rapid fire either way. That's my dream for the game, that there's only infinite options. But I hear you.
Yeah.
I think it becomes the. I think I agree with that take actually, like 100% agree with that take. But I do feel like where the game is right now, they can't handle infinite possibilities. They need to hone down on like, okay, with this build, you have these like pieces. They are gonna be stuck here because they are the build defining archetype. Think kind of tier sets in D4 or what in D3 or whatever, right? Where you have like these slots are taken up by this build, and then you have creativity outside of those pieces, or like very few pieces in this case. Whereas now it feels like, do I even run this with the how the game is right now? Because I don't see the upside of running this apart from one pit tier worth of damage.
I mean, trap arms faster and aftermath ranks are pretty huge.
Yeah, but you get both of them on temper, right? So you're like, because you don't need more than seven. I think it's like you need 0.6, if I recall correctly. Let me say actually.
I don't play enough Death Trap to have an opinion here, so I'm just listening to you guys.
Eldritch Bounty is nice. Finally, it's doesn't add an annoying thing to the bar.
Yeah.
But it's just I guess the buff now for just
Yeah,
Permanent.
Okay.
simple. Just click
Okay.
the button, get
Good.
more damage.
yay. Okay. All right. So, all right. No witness. Your ultimate skills gain additional 20%. Okay. So what's the difference here? Maximum 40 instead of 60. Is that all it is? This probably. I mean, I don't hate it because it really was really strong, relative. What I dislike is any sort of like I guess now looking past, what I dislike is any sort of compensation
Yeah.
for like especially core skills
no,
right now.
it's
I think
more.
that's
It's
say what?
So it's a very small wording difference, but it is another one. And grants this bonus to all skills for 10 seconds, imply that it double dip with itself. Now it says grants this bonus to all other skills for 10 seconds when cast,
I didn't
meaning
see
it
this.
doesn't double dip anymore. So the double dipping is removed, which means another 1/6 multi is gone for.
So it's even worse than what it looks like.
Yeah, it's way worse.
Okay. And ironically enough, you probably should still take it on some builds just because some other ones you just can't. Okay, so is there anything else down here we're missing?
Not really.
All this is okay. Any bug fixes? Okay, Nightmare Dungeons, General, Barbarian, Druid, Necromancer, Rogue. Okay. Miscellaneous. Vessel of Hatred. Okay. Okay, so no, it doesn't look like there's anything else. There's the Pangorgers. Fix there.
Yeah.
Oh wait. Wait, is this new?
We have some.
It's blue.
Which one?
Adaptability.
It's new based off of the original PTR. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, so not new in terms of like new, yeah, no, that's the same thing that was before. Okay, I was like, wait a minute. All right, so I mean, overall, I mean, and wait, any poison trap changes or no?
Nope.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, what do you, I mean, what do y'all think?
I think they are making the changes that they like. It's improving this, the class being improving the game overall, but it is such a big nerf that I think players will feel weak for like in terms of rogue. I think the changes are the right changes, but I think they could like squeeze in like double damage of all core skills or something, and it would be fine.
Danger says, "Hi, I'm fucked." Is Drew's that bad?
I fucked, I'm dead.
Chalkin says, "So Bo Bill is still looking like meh." Well, I mean, I think the idea that Bo Bills have or at least Bo Rogue can, now effectively use a different passive kind of makes things kind of neat, I guess. I mean, it's not going it's not going to propel like a Bo build up further than where it was. It's just more of a quality of life, which I mean, I guess at this point, considering that everything feels like a nerf, I'm actually kind of cool with quality of life. If it feels better to play, that's a W, I guess. But I think overall, I don't know. Oh, I guess feel like and I guess this is hard to tell what the other classes got to, because it's all relative, right? Like if we feel like we got no compensation, but all the other classes got like juiced core skill stuff or whatever like that. Not saying they did, but let's just say hypothetically, then yeah, everything we got is gonna feel really bad. But if everybody got kind of peeled back a bit on certain things, then relative, it may not look bad or be as bad as we expect. What I do find quite interesting is that, like, with Death Trap being peeled back as much, or they peeling back Death Trap, I wonder how far they peel that back, because now we still got because the Azarath bills didn't get nerfed, right? Azarath bills didn't get nerfed. TBPI didn't get nerfed, did it?
No, it got buffed.
All right, so
I
I guess the gap between Azarath, TBPI, and Random Varials to Depth Trap would be significantly smaller.
Yeah.
I straight up, TBPI is probably it's our best build now. Unironically, if the math is correct, then it is the best build now for Rogue.
Yeah. So
yeah, Ashrath is
What I don't like though is, at least personally, what I don't like is precision stuff. They didn't do anything for precision. They didn't do anything to make Random Varials less of a atrocity to play at all. So and that's going to be
go victimize.
So I thought about that too. I was thinking about that in my head for Random Varials.
Or anything
maybe
but pit pushing.
Well, considering that you're proccing, well, I mean, I guess, yeah, I guess you could. I mean, you're not worried about the, proccing precision and looking at this the whatchamacallit. Yeah, I guess maybe. Yeah, I guess so. I guess you could go victimize for Random Rails. I'll play around with the planner on it tonight for sure. Dre, what's up, man? But I almost think I'm gonna do almost all the bow builds honestly on victimize, just because it always felt weird doing close quarters. I mean, I guess maybe Mirage could probably stay close quarters combat because you're up close anyways. But I do think even rapid fire, honestly,
there's no there was so many bugs, right? You tested in season 8 rapid fire, but there's no mention of rapid fire.
Yeah, no, I didn't think they was gonna do that, because like even so, I guess whenever I reported the bug, it was actually like kind of like towards mid season or whatever.
Yeah,
and it was like probably not too much before the mention of the PTR, so I knew they weren't gonna have a bug fix for rapid fire by the PTR, and I really wasn't expecting them to have a bug fix for rapid fire this season. So however, I do think fun factor wise though, just purely fun factor, I think victimize would be victimize without the scoundrel's kiss ring for rapid fire would actually be kind of cool because you kind of get your AoE procs a little bit to kind of help with a little bit of AoE ish, and like you actually deal damage every attack, and you can do it from a distance. So I think for fun factor wise is there, but like not having that ring hurts. Like at least not in the appropriate way. It like hurts. I guess my thing is too is now like what builds would be worth running clone and which builds would be worth not running. I mean, I guess.
It's the alternative.
Yeah. Well, yeah. That's the thing. I guess what is the alternative to not running clone? Because you would run clone and you would generally use preparation for it because preparation is practically our best specialization. Now, if combo points was competitive, you wouldn't care. I mean, then you could drop clone, but considering that combo points and insight are still not competitive specializations, then you're still stuck with preparation. And if you have preparation, you might as well use clone because what else are you going to put on your bar? That's going to even be.
The problem as well is that even if that was the case, right, where you with the preparation, if you're running preparation, you also run clone kind of thing. I ran inner sights today with shadow clone, and I had enough uptime to run no witness 24/7. And so like the problems you would solve with this shift kind of thing, it is still not exclusive to the options we had before. It's just like
that's a good point, actually. Yeah, because we have the shadow clone reduction tempers. Sorry. Yeah, that's true. Danger's like, I'm still trying to process and not delete all my stuff as we speak. Apparently, Druids don't have it great either. Yeah, I mean, I guess like I said, overall, it's just kind of hard to see, but it hurts to see like core skills. I think overall, not even just rogue, but overall, just feel like they like are kind of like non-existent in a sense.
Well, that was my initial take too, but now I really like as Ava said, like TBPI, strongest build for rogue. Azurath is using like it's even though we're using the damage from Azurath, we're still using core skills to trigger it. So it's like at least I'll be not relying on an ultimate in season 9. So like for rogue.
So I don't know the exact changes to like I think Azure Wrath TB is for sure the best build for rogue. Like not even like it was doing a third of the pit pushing variant damage in the thing that I've been cooking, and TB lost more than 3 times damage, right? Like regardless of it. So like it's gonna be doing like it's gonna pretty much for sure gonna be better to use Azure Wrath TB. TBPI without clone is it was like 100 bills.
I
like
know, Nano. I know.
1/9 ish of DT.
Yeah.
And I think like you're gonna bridge the gap to the point where they're pretty much equal, more or less, which is nice. They're like more build diversity. The problem I have with this is that the measuring stick didn't change, and comparatively, it depends on how much everyone else kind of lost. But if we got our band sort of squished a bit, so like the difference between top and low end is tighter, that's good. That's healthy for the game. It's a good start for this process of rebalancing everything and whatnot, right? But if that only happens for it hasn't only happened for rogue. That's clear for everyone. But if the band squish for rogue was pretty significant, and like they've changed the fundamentals of how we deal damage, but the other classes got at least other tools to be more or less the same damage as before, we are way below everything else. Like we're not clearing 100 this season as it looks right now. So I'm not entirely certain. I'm not entirely certain I agree with the design philosophy of doing this big of a swing downwards without shifting the archetypes upwards in some capacity by like giving the core scaling higher damage, or like by shifting the damage to the player or anything like to compensate. Just like nose diving the damage doesn't feel good.
And it's all
I think-
relative to, like you said, you know, with what what the other classes are or are not getting, or what happened.
Yeah.
Danger feels really bad, is what it looks like so far. I don't even know what the Maxwell chat's saying.
I have
Everybody's
not
kinda-
looked intentionally right now.
Intentionally.
So
Mika said Barb's got taken out back.
from the looks of this, right, it looks like most Shadow Clone builds. This is just looking at the base scaling of Shadow Clone and no witness, right? All Shadow Clone builds got nerfed by at least 6 pit tiers, maybe 7. Like just straight up with exchange, just gone, right? And the problem is because we didn't get anything to buff the base damage except for Shadow Step. Shadow Step did get buffed, and we got some.
I think it's also
Yeah.
important to remember the key passive changes, because I use turf on all my close quarter combat builds, and now you don't need turf to, and you can replace the close damage tempers with dark shroud tempers. So I think there's like 2 tiers of buff there.
But turf used to, but turf,
yeah.
but turf double disc with close quarters combat, even if you didn't use the close, right? Not turf.
I do think that's an important.
Was it turf? No, what was it?
I don't think so.
It was close glyph, right? Was what glyph was it? Not turf. Never mind. I'm sorry. But yeah, you're right. You can remove turf. It was the other close glyph.
Basically, like, yes, we're getting nerfed with the clone, but there's some buffs in there that evens out like 20 to 50% damage at least.
It doesn't. I feel like it doesn't. It doesn't. I mean, yeah, but it's kind of like that. It's like, yeah, but you know, like we were already. I don't know. I'm kind of more on the line of what Ava said here. It feels like the compensation isn't really.
No, I totally agree. I just think it's important to be honest with the information.
That's fair. That's fair. You're right. I think at this point, I'm kind of like past the whole like, you know, like us dealing reputable damage, and more so of what's gonna feel good to play at this point. Like that's where I'm at, which is actually why I enjoy the, you know, looking at the victimized team, because now it's like, oh, finally I can actually build a little bit different. Oh, I can finally do things that are gonna feel a little bit better, even if it doesn't really change where builds really end up on the tier list. It will feel, and I guess I won't say like won't change, but like I think, for instance, like you know, let's say victimized versus close quarters combat or whatever like that. You know, on the surface it looks like close quarters combat would be maybe slightly better, or whatever like that. But you also got to remember that you can't use Deadeye with close quarters combat, and that's a 40% multiplier. So it's like, you know, like stuff like that helps, whereas before, you know, you wouldn't. You know, so like there is stuff.
But yeah, it also depends on the build that you are running, Matthias. For example, for Dance of Nice, you don't run close quarters combat. You don't get that shift in glyphs and in key passes and everything. So like it doesn't actually.
Also, for victimized builds, you can run damage per dark shroud now, right? Because you don't.
Yeah. Yes,
yeah. So there's that. Yes, I mean, there's. Like I said, I guess my focus is like, what's gonna be fun to play now? Because I mean, if a lot of this stuff is kind of like within similar-ish realm, I guess, I don't know, with the exception of like maybe 3 or 4 builds, like PI, TB, Azarath, Rain of Arrows, and I guess Death Trap, I guess, are the 4 that are going to be above everything else, basically. Then I guess fun factor is kind of all I'm after at this point. I'm actually have some motivation to do something now, whereas before I was just like,
yeah.
Before I was just like, I don't even want to even see this, whatever like that. But I'm still mad about the whole precision thing. Like it's dead. It's a dead key passive. Like, it really is. As long as combo point is dead, it's dead. I mean, nothing changed. It was bad
Yeah,
before,
I guess
and
like
it's
if
bad now.
if the bugs are working, or like if the bugs are fixed.
No, but I mean that would require me testing it on day 1 or day 2 to see if the bugs are fixed. But I seriously doubt that they had time to do that. Or maybe they did have time to do that. They just probably didn't get to it, or even see my bug report until like, I don't know, never or later. I don't know. I mean, honestly, with rapid fire, I mean, I still wouldn't. I don't even know. I'm gonna be honest with you. From a personal perspective, not necessarily efficient perspective, but from a personal perspective, the most fun I had on PTR, honestly, was playing rapid fire, like preparation rapid fire from a distance with clone. It wasn't great by any means. It cleared T4 okay-ish, but being able to precision just like snipe stuff from across the screen with the line of arrows or whatever, and like stutter stepping with it felt really good to play. Much more fun than like the combo point Scoundrel's Kiss like stuff.
Yeah.
To be 100% honest, like that was a lot of fun to play. Not saying that I would like recreate that per se for Mashroll, but like I guess my thing is that there's really nothing that rapid fire benefits from right now that Barrage can't do better, or even Pin Shot in some cases can't do better right now due to the bug with Scoundrel's Kiss. So at that point, is it really worth building it in a way that people don't want to play anyways, which is what, AKA combo points, or just kind of building it in a way where it's just like fun, where it's just like, hey, this is kind of a fun new way to play rapid fire. In a sense, I don't know, because I will much rather build it for Victimize without the ring, because now that there's actually some AOE involved, a little bit, even if it is just a little bit. You're building with what damage per Dark Shroud, so you're gonna buff this a little bit more than you normally would be able to. You still would take mostly generic damage multipliers anyways for rapid fire, and then you get your extra damage here. Like, I think this would be considerably more fun to play. I don't even know if I want to do like combo points rapid fire with Victimize anyway. Like, I don't know. Maybe with the ring, I don't know, but honestly, that's kind of all I got. Heartseeker would be more fun. Blaze Shift would be a possibility, maybe with Pain Gorgers now. And Victimize, so it gives us some real AoE on the side for fun.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of. Oh, I guess the also biggest thing too is Rain of Arrows with this too now. Quality of life wise, it'll be way cooler to build it with Victimize now.
Yeah, for sure. That sounds really fun to play.
What things are you guys missing now? Like, what do you feel like, I would have wanted to see this?
Say what?
Like, if there was something in the patch notes that you were missing that, like, I wish this would have been in there or addressed somehow. For me, my top pick for this is Poison Trap Reset with Inner Sight. With the gloves, it's like a big one that I wish they would have addressed in some capacity.
Precision. Some sort of different way to do anything that isn't just close quarters combat with extra steps at the moment.
Yeah.
And
I mean, what I was looking for in the patch notes appear. It was like I was waiting for my dad to pick me up, but he never came. It was like any core skill changes at all. Just like I want to use Eaglehorn, but it's worse than Azareth. So It's like I'm making this penetrating shot guide that doesn't even use the item because just the damage is not there. So that would have been my, but that's like an overarching for, I think, for all the core skills would be fun still to see them buffed.
I'm still missing. I think I agree with your point there, Matthias, as well, where it's like I like Shadow Clone as a concept. I think it's pretty cool, but maybe having it be you just doing things duplicated is too powerful for the game. A lot of the feedback that they have received from us in general has been, if you just look at all of the seasonal videos and everything that content creators are doing, it has been about shifting the player strength from the clone to the player in some capacity, or changing the functionality of clone. Because at the start, it was kind of misleading to have the previous clone because it didn't do what it said on on the can kind of thing, and now it does way more than what it says on the actual ability. It says it's gonna do 120% of your damage, and it does like 99.9% of like everything. Like it's 99% off your damage instead of 90%
Yeah.
of the damage you deal. So it's like it's way too powerful, but it's also what we kind of asked for initially, that it would fix clone, and now we're kind of asking them to take clone away again because we can't play any other way than around clone. I do think like one of the problems that we did have in regards to Shadow Clone was the actual generic multipliers to ultimates that we got. Apogeic, for example, is a big culprit in the whole like ultimate meta, and if we wouldn't have had that same thing with the double damage with Shadow Clone shenanigans, like this wouldn't even have been a problem to begin with. But I feel like I would have liked to see even more damage shifted to the player, not just removed from your DPS.
I agree. We did not. I don't think we got enough compensation for our actual, and I think that's gonna, if uh compared to again, I haven't seen what the other classes are doing, whatnot, that I not or with that, but I feel like it just, because we were so reliant on the clone to do any damage. Doing something about the clone is cool, but no compensation is bad because the core skills were already in the pretty rough spot anyways, or any non-ultimate builds were kind of in the rough spots for most. So now it's just like it just kind of just falls further and further into a hole until they do a core skills pass, I guess.
They hinted towards they will do that in the campfire. They're like, yeah, basic skills was this patch. Next patch is the next category.
Yeah. But I guess my thing is just that with core skills being, well, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like basic attacks in general. I do, but like core skills being core, right? I would assume that would have been the first. That would have been the more important thing to focus on first versus basic attack. Not saying basic attack didn't need anything, but like I think that could have waited versus core skills. I think people would have been considerably more happier if core skills got the love this time around, and then basic skills later. You know what I mean? But
I think everyone would agree with that. It seems like they maybe just played it safe. They're like, we'll test what happens if we buff basic skills, and it's like, oh, seems like the community likes it, and yeah, as always, it's a bit slow. The changes we want.
Yeah, I kind of. I mean, I did say that they need to start swinging hard in order to get any like actual change on the needle, and I'm happy that they are swinging hard, and I'm kind of regretting ever stating that I want them to swing hard all at the same time. I do think that when they do swings like this, it needs to come up with but this archetype is buffed by a sizable increase so that we can have a shift in the meta kind of thing, right? I have no problem like taking a build from giga super mega big to it's still up there in maybe upper B tier, but like that's where it's landing kind of thing, to increase something that has been in C tier up to S tier, right? Like doing a swing like that, where it's like now we're testing how this archetype feels with these numerical changes. But doing a big swing downward doesn't feel good when there's already like too many archetypes that relies on these interactions to even survive, yet alone exist. Like I'm kind of contemplating now, do we, for example, archive the Dance of Knives endgame build? Because
Well, I
Dance of
mean,
Knives is now going to be doing like
is there like
sub
a
70s.
is there like a victimized angle to take with it?
That's not the problem. The damage from the key passes is not a problem. It's the fact that like you're already running momentum, so the only benefit you would get is like 15% additive to the multiplier, right, and the occasional AOE. But I don't think Victimize is backlogged the way certain things are from how far we know, right? Like it's still the same ICD that we had before, from what I know.
I mean, we can.
And the
Well,
problem with
so the ICD is still 0.25, right? I mean, I guess we can ask me if the backlog damage is still there or not.
yeah, but even that's the problem. Like the problem with Dance of Knives is that it's the perfect storm of everything that is wrong with Rogue. It has a set attack speed, which means that you can't scale lucky hit interactions. It has no piercing or AoE in that capacity, so anything big AoE pack, you don't deal any damage whatsoever. Sure, you have star shards, but it doesn't do enough damage, and it still only doesn't pierce, so it's a set amount per target you're hitting anyway. You have poor scaling because attack speed is just a multiplier, but you don't have a lot of good ways to get attack speed for Dance of Knives. And then you have really, really poor aspect support, which means you can't really scale it with high multipliers. The only way you could do that was through ultimate skills, which has now effectively been 1/4 of what it was before. So it's like a perfect storm of everything that we kind of wanted to have changed, but we have no solutions for it. We would have
Fair.
needed something like grenade tag for Dance of Knives, something that increases the amount of unconditional multipliers you would have for that build archetype to support a shift from clone to that instead. But unfortunately, we don't.
Yeah. I guess they just weren't gonna give us anything more because I guess they're gonna do a pass to core skills anyway eventually for all the classes. So I think that's why they just didn't they didn't do anything like nerfing the clone was just that, nerfing all of our like nerfing every build's damage basically by what 5-ish pit tiers roughly. So I don't know. Who is it? Pilot? Oh no, Peach is like skills are more fun if they do damage. Yeah. I mean, well, yeah, and I guess it's, as long as it doesn't. I mean, as long as it doesn't struggle doing normal content. Like pit pushing is one thing, but like if you're struggling, like going into a hell tie with the skill, then that's not going to be fun because the skill is struggling. So even if it mechanically works pretty cool, but if you're struggling doing normal ass content, right? Like let's say you stepped outside of like town on accident, something like that, and the enemy swarming you can't kill them on like T3 or something, then yeah, that's not gonna be fun. No matter like how cool mechanically it's gonna work. But like as long as a build can effectively do things in the areas of the game that matters, then like how it feels, I think for me matters more than what it does in a pit push scenario. So I don't know. Like with all these changes that's going on right now, I have no idea how this is gonna really feel in T3, T4 going forward, in a sense. Paulo says, speaking of basic skill, that's Heartseeker still in a good spot for season 9. I mean, everything kind of went down. So even though Heartseeker can use Victimize now, unless they fix the backloading damage of Victimize, it actually kind of went down from the PTR, but that's all rogue builds. All rogue builds kind of went down, except what TBPI and Reign of Arrows.
Azarath.
Azarath. Yeah, those.
Yeah.
I think those are the only 3 things that did not get touched, basically. At least not in a major way, unless you want to consider the Paragon nodes, I guess. So yeah, I guess you could say that. Yeah, I guess they got touched because no witness got hit. I guess it's just not that bad, but like the others got hit worse for sure. But I will say Heartseeker will feel better to play. That's if that's like you can play it range again with Victimize, and that's gonna feel considerably better to play than with close quarters combat. So I will say that. And it's gonna feel better on bosses because Close Clip now is gonna work on bosses. So it's gonna feel better on that aspect, but don't be looking at like, you know, going to like A tier or S tier or anything like that. Like, I wonder if my question will get answered.
Sorry, what?
I
Oh,
wonder
that
if
question.
yeah,
Yeah.
because that's a big deal because that's gonna matter.
Yeah.
Which skills you do use for it, right? Because like if there's no backlog, then it's not gonna really matter which skill you use per se. If there is a backlog, then Lucky Hit now matters a lot more. And that's a big deal. So Doc says, sure, hope you're doing well. I have a question. How did Death Trap Road do? Did it get completely nerfed? I mean, it did get hit pretty big. If the others want to comment on it more, they can. I didn't play as much Death Trap last season. It'll still be one of Rogue's top builds, and it still feels great to play. It's just not going to be miles better than like TB or Rain of Arrows like it once was. But it'll still feel good to play, if I recall.
If I don't know, Matthias will have to chime in on this. If you turn off damage numbers, you're not gonna feel any different playing DT in season 9 with these patch notes.
You're probably not even gonna feel it until you start pay pushing, basically, right? Like
Yeah, like you're never gonna feel these nerfs in any relevant content in any capacity other than if you're pit pushing.
Well, we got to level glyphs to 100, and I think DT will be weaker at that than it was. I'd say around tier 90 is probably comfortable for DT, but it used to be around 100 plus in the PTR. That would be my guess.
I'm gonna like run the actual numbers on. I'm gonna make the calc before the season 9 values, but I think we've probably lost like.
okay. That
It's just yeah.
that's not. I'm not. That doesn't give me confidence, but okay.
What doesn't? Sorry.
Check the Rogue.
Oh.
Partner. But I guess for Rain of Arrows, if I did Victimize then Rain of Arrows, I'd probably do it with Pin Shot as the core instead of Barrage, because it has a lot better lucky hit.
But
So,
why do you need Pinch Shot even? Or you need Alpha Beast Falls or something? Or how does it work?
Yeah. Peaceful. So instead of doing 1-to-1 Barrage Rain of Arrows, you'll just do 1-to-1 Pin Shot Rain of Arrows. And so since Pin Shot has much higher lucky hit value, then you'll just
keep your distance and blast.
Yep. And then so therefore you're guaranteed to Victimize at a pretty decent pace. And like if the backlogging works, that also benefits it too a bit more. So there also might be a case to running Fist of Fate then at that point. If the backlogging actually works. If not, then well, I guess you wouldn't even really need that. You just go air and starless skies. I mean, you'll have plenty of lucky hit at that point. I don't know. We'll see. At least I have something to do. I think I have motivation to kind of like figure out how mediocre this really is. But maybe there's a but maybe with much more increased fun factor behind it, right? Something to do.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's kind of where I'm at. Is that just give it to me straight, Doc? Is Rain of Rails there? Actually, Rain of Rails is indirectly better than what it once was. Ironically, Rain of Rails did not get a buff at all whatsoever. But in terms of the changes itself, Rain of Rails was probably affected the least, or one of the least, out of 3 different things for Rogue. So TB, PI, Azarath, and Rain of Rails all got the least hit. So ironically, relative to everything else that got hit, Rain of Rails actually got better, not worse. Relative. Just want to just put that out there. Relative, not like actually got better and more damage or like that, but relative to everything else that happened to Rogue, Rain of Rails actually got stonks within the Rogue ecosystem, if that makes sense. Also, possibly some really good quality of life if Victimize plays out the way it does. It'll make it so much easier for players to play it. So
Yeah.
It's because no one playing Rain of Rails last season. Well, I mean, there was no reason to. I mean, when you create Darth Vader, right? Which is the best build, the best close range build, the best range build. You can hold down right click. You basically can spawn black holes wherever you want with your mouse, right? Is there any reason to play anything else? How do you sell anybody on anything else besides that? Like, oh, do you want to be Darth Vader or do you not want to be Darth Vader? You choose, right? Like I think the choice is obvious. Like, I mean, there's and you're immortal, right? Like there's Rain of Rails, you was doing all these like tricks and like loops and figuring outs and rotations to do like way less damage with a much slower moving projectile, right? And having to manage precision stacks, there's why do all that when I can just spawn black holes at will on the screen? You know what I'm saying? Like, when you think about it, at the end of the day, it's just like, so yeah, I don't blame anyone for not playing Rain of Rails. I mean, ironically enough, though, Rain of Rails and Dev Traps would be way closer. I still think that, I mean, Dev Trap will be better quality of life no matter what. Like, it's just let's be realistic. But in terms of like pound for pound power, I think Rain of Rails is very close to Dev Trap. And now with a little bit of quality of life for Rain of Rails, I mean, you're still gonna play Death Trap, let's be honest. But if you are one of those weirdos that was like, I don't want to be Darth Vader for any particular reason, any particular strange reason that is, you can play Rain of Rails and not feel like you're, falling off a cliff in terms of damage. That's the plus going into next season. If you want to be 100% realistic with you, if you just don't enjoy trap builds, you can play a bow build per se, quote unquote, right? And not feel like your damage falls off a cliff. That is the plus. But Breakpoint says, what was it? Pretty much played Death Trap the entire season, just about. It was so much fun. I mean, I think the thing is that if you're not I'm gonna say iffy, but like if you enjoyed Death Trap last season, you'll still enjoy it this coming season. Because it still mechanically functions the same way, and you'll still destroy T4. You still catch black holes wherever you want. You're just not gonna know, like you're not gonna really feel the nerfs for Death Trap until you start pushing. But if you don't care about pushing and you really enjoy Death Trap is far from dead, and it will still be one of Rogue's most efficient builds, skills, and for Rogue. Now, of course, there's Flurry. Flurry's going to be very efficient too as well. But like Death Trap, again, Darth Vader. So just keeping that out there. It's still Darth Vader, just maybe he's like, I don't know, couple of thousand years older. He's got some gray hairs now. He's declining health wise a little bit, but he still has the same powers or similar powers. Just doesn't hit as hard anymore. But he's still Darth Vader. That's kind of what it is.
Pretty accurate.
But I mean, yeah, I mean that's kind of. I guess I do have more work to do.
Yeah.
Now that Victimize is a thing, so now I have to go to all my planners and also build guides now, because when you build around a key passive, your entire core of your build guide changes. So now instead of just so now instead of just like updating a couple of wordings of like that for season 9, I have to actually go back and like peel apart that stuff, which is fine. It's a lot more work on me per se, yeah, but at least I have motivation to do, because there's something different. That's it. How is Sorg, by the way? Bad Fairy said, "Oh, you said Dodge using Braid too." Yeah, I kind of need to, because usually I have like a tab addiction, so I'm just not showing you the jillions of tabs I have open. My other tab has like a jillion tabs open. And Brave tends to handle that better than the other browsers in terms of having like hundreds of tabs at one time going on. So yeah, I think Hydra got buff, right? AoE wise, I don't know. You're a big fan.
Yeah, I like, it was funny on the PTR. Momentum was so good because in comparison to everything else, but now I feel like momentum is all of a sudden bad compared to CQC and.
Wait. But close quarters combat didn't get a buff though. You just now.
Well, you can max it out without any effort.
Yeah,
so you can run dark. Like the benefit of momentum before, so you can run Dark Shroud, Shadow, Temper.
That's right. That's fair. Yeah, you're right.
But now we get 30% attack speed and 90% damage from CQC very easily. So
I think that's my problem with Victimize as well, where it's like it has one use case, and it's a use case that needed to be fixed, which was ranged basic builds, for example, or like any ranged build that didn't want to use precision. It now has a some sort of key pass that it can use, right? Like I think that's good, but I do agree with Matthias as well. It kind of feels like you use momentum if you need damage reduction and have no other option. That's it. You would just use QCQ for everything else. Well, CQC.
Oh, because yeah.
Maybe I'll stick to momentum for Flurry just because it feels good and you're tankier for like the mythic build, but I think for pushing you would definitely go CQC.
Yeah, and I think that's the case for most builds, more or less, where you would just be pigeonholed into running CQC now for more or less everything.
I'm surprised this was that big of a deal. I mean, I'm not saying it's not, but like,
right?
Oh yeah, true.
It was close, and now they just removed it. Right now, it's no longer close.
Could they just buff the aspect for momentum then, like in the future?
I think so here's the problem, and I think this is like a part of a much larger topic. Eh, Some builds have the aspect economy to use things like stolen synergy and not lose out on an option, right? They might not have enough aspects to fill
I see where
everything
you're
or
going
whatever.
with it.
But in this meta that we have like 65 uniques for every build, more or less. You know, like a lot of builds have their kit giga stacked with unique items, and then the ones that don't have no unique support, like no aspect support. So it's kind of an either or situation, and we don't have, like, for the meta builds, we don't have a problem with available aspects right now. So it's like you kind of like stolen vigor is like, oh, do we get a slightly larger multiplier that we don't? Like, you know, it's like a big difference. Whereas if we had no options, and then if you run momentum, you get access to this big multi that you wouldn't otherwise have access to something similar with. Like, that's a big W for momentum, right? And you would have a big case for it. But now it's like, do I run conceited or stolen vigor? You know, that's like that's more or less like the option for some bits.
Peach is saying for melee, stolen vigor is still going to be used though.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be used for like basically everything. For anything non-pushing. But it's like Matthias said, for pushing, it's pretty much one key passive for everything now, more or less. Except for
Ironically
ET,
enough,
which
that's
would
kind
use
of what it
pushing.
was before the victimized change here, where we were kind of. I think the other end of things, the marksmen were stuck with close quarters combat until victimize. But now it's like melee is going from momentum to close quarters combat, so we just shifted over. I guess everyone just shifted over, and then precision is just left out in the dust because who wants to bother with precision? So sad for precision though.
Yeah, I think the takeaways I would have from this, right, like the big ones, is that there are a lot of good with this change. Like, it doesn't look good right now on paper, right? But they did a lot of changes that are genuinely making the game feel better to play. And I think that's the ultimate goal, right? The numerical values of everything that can be dialed, right? That's it's not easy, but you can at least change that easier. Changing something to make it feel good to play is difficult. And I think most of the changes that they did, regardless if it was a numerical nerf or whatever, has made the game feel better to play.
Agreed.
I'm thinking about
That's true.
I like all the changes.
Yeah.
Like, there's none of the blue text that I'm like, oh, I wish they didn't do this.
Yeah. I do think there's one that sticks out to me that is kind of weird, and that's the flurry one. And I understand why they did the flurry one. It's the best short-term solution I can see to the problem they had, which is that we gain too much fury, sorry, too much energy when you don't want to gain more energy, right? Like, you want to be able to control when you get energy. But the play style they're trying to advocate for with that change doesn't exist in the game right now, which is the problem, right?
I'm not entirely sure if I agree. I think in leveling it will be kind of fun to be like, oh, I should pop my dash because then I get energy. And like, cool, okay, now I can flurry again. And then it's like a little back and forth. And for endgame, it doesn't really matter anyway.
Yeah, I think my counter to that would be you're probably playing like actually yeah, maybe you don't play like, do you play combo points?
I mean, I personally, if I play the game, I would not. I would go inner side as soon as possible. But if
Okay.
for the build guide, yeah, it's combo points, yeah.
Yeah,
And it's using the other
because I was
flurry.
thinking for like combo points in particular, it might not be, you know, it's basically
Yeah, it's irrelevant.
maybe.
It doesn't work for combo points. You don't gain the benefit of the damage.
All right.
Because you need to cast 3 flurries and then you're stacked.
Right. Oh yeah, that's true.
Condies.
But yeah, it's like that's like probably the only change where I feel like this kind of missed more than it hit. But I, instead of removing it straight up, I guess it's the best thing they could have done, maybe, like as a short-term solution.
I guess we'll see where the balance is. I think overall, because it seems like, at least looking at the Maxwell chat, every class is complaining, like massively complaining,
yeah.
except for Sork, I guess. Sork is the only one that seems to have gotten better. I guess Hydra is even better than it was, and it was already going above 100 easy. I don't see any Spiritborn complaining, but Woody usually doesn't really complain that much unless it's like really bad.
Yeah.
And then when he does,
But
it's like epic complaint, right? It's like so sharp and like you know, stings kind of complaint. It's just so good. But until then,
yeah. Apart from that, I don't really see any. Like, I'm trying to scroll through the changes again, but like I don't really see anything that can sort of fix the problems that I saw for some skills, right? Hmm. No. Most of the stuff is kind of the same. It does say that the monster's health in pit tier after Torment 1 has been slightly reduced to ensure that a wider range of build successfully succeed in the journey to Torment 4.
you Torment 4. Right? So that's what, what's that, 65 or what is it?
55.
No,
But
55.
I don't know if that means the monster health increased per pit tier until Torment 4 and then it goes up again, or if it's like, if it's just straight up from Torment 1 and onwards, it has been slightly reduced. But yeah, also in case that it wasn't picked up, it was like some people picked up on, the additive portion is completely removed from overpower. You no longer get any additive damage from overpower. Which means basically overpower is now just a 1-5 multiplier. So you no longer need to stack and you no longer need to have fortified. That entire archetype is just gone. You no longer need to stack health. It's just a 1-5 multi whenever you overpower.
Yeah. Not too affected as a rogue, but it sounds like a big nerf.
It's a
Other
shame because I
classes,
think
yeah.
it removed. Yeah, it removed diversity in a way that I would have been inclined to just say, like, remove the 1-5 multi, but keep the additive. Like, or something, you know? Like, do something else than completely remove the HP scaling, because I think that was at least a decision to be made now with the 80% reduced to the additive. But this sort of cements it as like, well, goodbye, overpower.
What am I looking at?
My question now, and maybe your like tool will come in handy, but it's like, is versatility worth it now to just buff clone? Like, does that out
Probably not.
damage like a canny glyph?
Probably not. I mean,
Probably not, no.
yeah, probably not. Because like versatility was worth it, but I mean, obviously versatility was worth it, but it wasn't like, it was better, but it wasn't like I don't know, like universe is better, if that makes sense. It was kind of like, okay, well, it still is, most of your damage still come from clones, so it's obviously better, but it wasn't so far ahead that like if you chose something else, that your damage fall off a cliff, type sort of thing. So, but now that our clone damage is technically kind of is falling off a cliff, then yeah, you kind of have to.
So
It might be better
for
to,
Shadow,
huh?
for Shadow Step, clone was 90% of your damage.
Yeah, bad fair
So
it
if you
is.
buffed,
Go ahead, sorry.
Shadow Clone was 90% of your damage for Shadow Step, right? So that means that versatility is basically a what 22.5% multi if you want to like just do like quick XDX math. So it was still pretty big, but not too bad. Now it's like I don't even know. It's basically running all the clone multis basically puts it at equal scaling as it was before. So it's basically a 1-to-1 increase or something like that. To your damage. So if your damage is 50% of the clones, then it's like a 12.5 multi.
Right. So it's definitely not worth it now then.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But what about Epijake Fear aspect? Is that worth running on a two-handed or amulet anymore? Even
Same
a
problem.
yeah, same problem. But I guess it's like in comparison to like a conceded 30%. Is that like which one is gonna come out on top? Like I
Well, if you're doing casino on an amulet, that's 45 or 200 or 60, right? So like, I mean, I don't like Apogee to be honest. I always hated that that
yeah,
aspect.
likewise. I hope it's like not worth it
Hope it
for
dies.
clone,
I hope it
but I
dies.
just don't know.
Yeah.
So basically, I mean, I can update my calc today, and then we can have a season 9 version of it.
I think you are our last hope with that.
Yeah, you are.
Because I would
you're
never
not
be able
Ava,
to
telling me that
figure out.
that's gonna
Ava
come
GPT.
Ava GPT coming up.
No, I mean, I can, yeah, I don't really think. Well, I guess it just depends on the build. I will say for the stuff that I run, I don't think it'll be worth it for any of the ones I run. But maybe, well, Renovaros, still, sure. I think for my other clone based stuff, probably not. At least for the ones that I do, I would much rather the more consistent damage, consistent, reliable things. I mean, I hated running it to begin with, so now it's kind of one of those things where it's just like, if I definitely don't have to run it, I personally will not. Because I guess the thing is that
Yeah.
like I think while in theory I think it's a neat aspect in theory, but the fact that we cannot track it is the problem. So we can't like skillfully be like, okay, we're gonna, try to get to 7, 8, 9 stacks, but kind of stay at that stacks for as long as we possibly can to maximize the amount of damage we're dealing. If we can do something like that, I'd be fine with it. But the fact of the matter is that it's just kind of sort of, we don't really have any control over how we can maintain the top level buffs or whatever. Much like precision stacks, right? Like it just becomes one of those things you just randomly get a huge damage bonus for a huge number off of, and that's just not fun. Like it's not fun at all. It just feels like more RNG on top of RNG on top of RNG that you don't have any control over. No realistic control over. I put it that way, and that's why I hated it so much. Someone's asking, what was it? How do you feel about Dance of Nows and Victimize? I mean, I'm sure you can do it for fun. I think if the backlogging stuff works, again, I'm sure you could, I guess have some fun with it, especially with AoE explosion. Well, actually, no AoE explosions because that's never mind. But yeah, I mean, you can. I don't know how much more effective that would be than like going just momentum or close quarters combat, but
So
mean,
again, here the problem with victimized builds with Dance of Knives is the fact that how are you scaling your damage? Because like you don't do quick enough attacks, and you also don't do. I mean, you basically don't do anything with rate of attacks, right? So like lucky hit based interactions are struggling for Dance and Ice. You can probably make it work somehow, but it's gonna be rough.
Yeah, I just don't see what advantage you really would get going victimized over something else. Like if it makes sense for like the marksman stuff, just because of playstyle difference. But you don't gain anything different playstyle wise going Dance and Knives with victimized. Not saying you can't do it, just saying you're not gonna really benefit. Like the explosions, like the explosion damage really is not really worth. It wasn't worth before. It was really bad before, and it went from being a maximum of 300% to 200%, and 200% just baseline, meaning that your explosion damage is actually worse than what it was in PTR, which was already really bad. Now, granted, maybe it wasn't backlogging on PTR, which could explain a lot of that, but I just don't think it's really worth. It's definitely worth for marksman builds though, but more so because of the 75% increase and not having to, rely on close quarters combat to deal damage. But that's really about it. It's a playstyle change for marksman skills. S9s won't really get that benefit, or doesn't get that benefit. You'll play the exact same way for less damage. Yeah. All right. Well, what do you guys? How are you guys feeling about the seasonal power stuff? What are your go tos? Or do you feel like there's any changes or shakeups or anything?
Pewter_Odin raided my stream.
Yo, dog.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. I just gotta raise,
son.
Where my glasses at?
You know how we do.
I can't find my
Drop
glasses.
my new beat for these new viewers.
Oh. I haven't streamed for so long. Oh, there's my glasses.
Streamer bad.
I gotta catch the back end of the dance. Hold up. I'll catch the last part.
You better redo that dance right now.
Got Sheezy out. Peter, appreciate you, man. How you doing? I haven't done that in a while. So I couldn't find my glasses there. Let me answer this real quick and then talk about the season of powers, Blondie, because everybody's gonna be asking me about Heart Seeker now and victimized with the victimized reward. How are you? Any chance season 9 is the great return of Heart Seeker? No. Not in the sense of it being Rogue's best build, no. But in terms of playstyle, yes. So like, if you're just looking for something fun and good to clear T4 with, yes. Like Victimize Heartseeker will be a lot of fun to play in T4. But don't expect it to be anywhere near like any of Rogue's top builds. Now I will say that if the backlogging kind of works properly, because it hasn't really worked properly in the past season-ish, that could change things, but it's still kind of hard to tell. It has a 0.25 ICD for the most part, and I just haven't really seen it work like properly since they made the changes to the ICD. So even if you can backlog the damage alongside with the clone, because like it hasn't, okay, I'll put it this way, it hasn't backlogged properly since the clone could proc Lucky Hit. So I have yet to see what Victimize can do if backlogging properly worked, while the clone could, also has Lucky Hit properties as well. I have yet to see that. So I have no idea how that's going to work out in the long run. It could be pretty good. On paper, it did look good back then, but I'm not going to be the person to kind of like put it out there and be like, yo, this is going to be really good, really strong. No, I'm not going to say that because I don't know. Could it be better than where we think it is? Yeah, but it just depends on how the backlogging damage actually, or backlogging, if it works properly or not. Death Trap's still the king of rogue for T4. Yes, for pushing TB, poison,
Azarath. Yeah.
So not even poison TB.
So poison TB is fine, but it's 1/9 of what DT used to be. So it's probably gonna be half of new DT's damage, roughly, maybe, or like we're gonna be closer. It's probably gonna be Azarath, DT, and then TBPI in that order.
Okay.
But it's still good, and it depends on the extent of these nerfs. I'm still fixing my database with it, but it's
got it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. All right, but yeah, I mean, I guess you have options then, Blondie. You know, so if you still like Death Trap, still play Death Trap because it's gonna literally feel the exact same way as it did before, mechanically. So if you like Death Trap, play Death Trap. You said, yes, sir, victimized rework. That was very surprising to me. I did not see that coming at all. I had zero hope victimized coming into season 9. I did not think they was gonna do that much with it. I'll put it that way. I'm still sad that precision didn't get any realistic love for long term gaming. It's better for leveling now. Because it's way easier to kind of cap, but that means you have to run a precision build. Who wants to do that right now? So I don't know. I guess you could still level with like 12 points precision. Combo points barrage leveling is actually, with precision, is actually not bad. That'd be considerably better with that change. Even rapid fire leveling will actually be better with that change too. Not I think about it. And pin shot. Okay, yeah. So yeah, like for leveling, yeah. I guess they could say that you kind of want to gear out of combo points and out of precision, get to the end game stuff, but you'll miss a lot to pull from Death Trap. I mean, it still does the thing. Like Death Trap won't function any different than it does now.
It doesn't double pull anymore. That is the only difference. It doesn't double pull the same way it used to. It only pulls once per Death Trap. That's a big change.
I mean, if you're casting like Death Trap bat to bat to bat, does that matter?
No.
I mean,
other than DPS,
no. Like, like, because it's not like you're casting. Pulling, then no. Yeah. I was thinking, it's like you're casting Death Trap and then once, and then you come back tomorrow and cast it again. And it's like, are they still there? Are they still in the area? I gotta get them back pulled. No. They didn't remove the pull. But like, I mean, the second pull was not even. I mean, let's be honest. Like, once you have it geared out and you're able to spam it, that second pull didn't matter in a realistic sense. Your damage is less, but everything else mechanically works exactly the same. Was there a mention of the loot tables for the new unique items? Yes, I think they did that on the blog, the previous blog. Pretty sure they did on the previous blog. Oh yeah, what was I saying? Oh yeah, the seasonal powers. I totally forgot about that. What is everybody's?
Not a lot changed in this particular patch note today. I like it. I like overall it's like a seasonal thing. I like the utility that I get from removing DR auras and barriers, and for leveling I can.
There's the optimism from Matthias.
Speed. Yeah.
There's the
optimism. So overall,
okay.
I enjoy it.
Okay.
mean, they definitely, it's like some false advertising, as we talked about earlier, when they're like, there's 2 million alternatives, and like, yeah, it's like, it's more of the same, but at least I prefer removing DR Aura to 20% more damage.
Fair. I guess kind of like I would like for them to. I mean, and they won't for a while. But like I would like for them to get away from powers. I don't want to say powers, but implement it in a different way. The whole like reusing the UI, borrowing from literally from previous seasons, kind of just reskinning the whole idea of it. Just seems very like. It's one thing if you rotate, like if you rotate from powers to something else and then back to a different set of powers and something else, then something else, and then you're back to powers. Sure, like D3 did that, and that was fine. We didn't complain, as much when when we went from a seasonal theme that buffed us in a certain kind of way, because the next theme was like something that wasn't buffing us. It was a environmental theme, whether you liked it or not. It was still different. Here is just like powers at the powers at the powers at the powers, with the very similar AI, with the very similar ranking up the powers, very similar way of earning the powers. It just feels so it just doesn't feel like a season, if that makes sense, because it's so familiar. I think that's probably my concern about it. It's not the way that they did it. I actually don't like the idea of like having the catalyst thing. I think that's actually kind of cool, putting it where you want and stuff like that. That's okay, but I just feel like the powers being very similar back to back to back to back, it just feels so familiar to where it doesn't even feel like a season anymore or a season theme anymore. It just feels like it's part of the game ish that doesn't really feel like it's gotten any better. At least that's just what it feels like. But I think I would feel different if there was a season theme in between that just throws all of that off, where it's just completely different, or even no theme. If it's just a big, huge quality of life bug fix, rework of a bunch of stuff for a season, then that's fine. We can skip the powers. I'd be fine. Like season 4 was a great example of that, right? It's like, yeah, a huge rework or something. We didn't need a season theme. It was great. The rework was more than enough, and lots of people played that season. The season of no season, basically. You know what I'm saying? So like they can do that, right? And allocate resources that way. You don't necessarily have to do the powers.
Yeah, I
Every
have
season.
rare opinions on this sort of stuff. Permanent changes is all I want. Like I could care less kind of about the seasonal stuff. All I care about is patch notes. Where's the direction of the game? Like, how are they changing nightmare dungeons? Like, what's the permanent changes of a big game? Like that, the season, like people complaining about the powers and like it. Yeah, to me, it's like such a non-factor of the overall experience compared to the like 90% bulk experience.
I guess for me, it just feels like a waste of resources when they could be working on something that would feel better for the game. I think that's probably my thing. Like if you're gonna use resources to do powers again, in a sense where it's really familiar and it doesn't really feel like another season theme, why not just use that resources for just the base game? Not saying that it's not the dev's choice, obviously. Here I'm sure we know that part, but it's like if we can just allocate the resources to doing more to the game, to the actual game itself, then it just feels empty when there's so much stuff that can be done to the game itself, and yet we're focusing on something that is not nearly as exciting, I guess you could say. Again, I don't think I think there are some cool ideas with the powers, but because it's so back to back to back to back, with the familiar face and the familiar way to level up, then it just doesn't hit the same. Like if this season came out like in season 1, we will all be saying something different about it. We're like, oh, this is actually really cool. Like if this was season 1 of this type of like Sins of Herodrum, and then it was season 1, yeah, we would look at this completely differently. But
Yeah, in my opinion, I think Blizzard should continue do nothing but powers. Like stick to your powers because at least you have a template, and it probably takes less resources. So I'm assuming by you continuing to do powers, it'll leave you more time to work on other stuff. So it's like make it easy on yourselves, like copy paste as much as possible, so that we can actually get the changes we want to masterworking or whatnot.
That's what I was hoping, but they actually mentioned that it takes about almost 6 months to do a theme. So teams alternate between doing the themes or whatnot, and it takes 6 months to come up with that particular season theme. So it's really not helping them at all. I wish it was. I really wish it was. But to design these themes, they mentioned it takes 6 months for them to do it ahead of time. Which is why
you said initially, I mean, this is like the main opinion of the community is like, we don't want powers back to back to back. But like, if they didn't do power, they like imagine they were so creative they had to do new things. It would probably take like 18 months per season. You know, if it takes 6 months with the current system of just like rehashing the same powers, then okay, well at least it's 6 months and not whatever more it could be if they went crazy.
I guess that's fair. Well, I guess in that case, then just do a season every other season, and just do base game changes every other season, and then so you space out the amount of times you do powers. I guess I don't know. I don't know. It's something but you're not wrong. That's a good point that you made though.
Yeah.
Zario, what's up, man? Cool seeing you, man.
Wait, Zario's there?
Yeah, Zario just at the end of the day, he says at the end of the day, until they fix the end game, they actually have a fun end game progression system. It doesn't matter how they change the classes, in your opinion. Pit's still in a very bad state, yes. And that's technically the progression end game, right? So yes. I'm actually still very surprised that Pitt is remained in this state as long as it has all this time.
All right. It takes me forever to fix this database. I like to fix this appropriately now. But looking at these very early numbers, where I compare my damage before to damage now, player agency for Shadow Step, for example, went from 6% with Shadow Step in before the patch to
like
0.3%.
94, like 94% clone, you mean?
Yeah, 90%, 95, 94% clone to 77% clone. So
Okay.
it's still clone, but
that's the most extreme example, I guess. Like,
yeah, this is Shadow Clone. It doesn't get any buffs. Like this is with Ravager included, right? So I changed Apogee Furor. I don't even have it on right now on the other build. And I have what's it called? Ravager in my season 9 build, and comparing the two. And basically you lost an X2 multi. That's how much damage you ended up losing for Shadow Clone. And that's one of the few builds that actually got a big compensation. So roughly 4x damage lost, like if you don't have a big compensation. For Shadow Clone in cases where you don't get anything for it. So any close quarters combat build, you would have to factor in, like you said, rightfully so, the changing glyphs and the additives. That's probably going to be a 50 multi maybe, if even that. Like two separate, like 20 multis maybe, like more or less in strength. So it's gonna be it's a little bit rough. But it's not like 20 pit tiers we're talking about. We're talking about maybe three, four.
Exactly. To me, if I play a build that can push 90 or 85, it's all the same. Like, yeah, it's all the same.
True. Thinking Richard, what's up, man? Zara says, killing Uber bosses 1,000 times to get more power to push piss is garbage. The number dungeon changes sort of. Well, I want to say sort of. It's supposed to be a more another effective way to be able to farm for things. Asterisk though, hard asterisk, right? We'll kind of see how that actually really ends up working out, but supposed to be. The Uber boss grind is the worst part of everything. The way you get mass is terrible. The actual fights are terrible. I think the actual fights are. I feel like. Okay, with the way the game is played, the fights were terrible. Yes, I do think that they actually do have interesting mechanics. If we weren't so overtly strong, to where we can one shot them and then kind of get annoyed because we got the immune stages where that prevents us from one shotting, then all that feels bad. But I think the mechanics, like the design of the bosses, are actually kind of cool. It's just that we don't fight them like in a realistic way. So they just become farmable, like, stick figures with the health bar above them, I guess. I don't know. It's just the loot doesn't drop enough and still relies on people buying deep mats. Also true. Not a few people that made it again to farm early. Yeah, I know. That's the thing though. Like I think even back then, like I kind of scoffed at the idea of doing like boss rotas for my stream. I think you were there for that, or at least during that time frame. Like I hardly really ever did boss rotas. Sometimes I would do them with like if a friend asked me to, or like like maybe Boiler be like, yeah, I got some mash whatever. I'm just like, okay, sure. But like you will rarely ever see me like start a stream up and be like, all right, boss rotas, and like get people into a list and that kind of thing. I rarely ever did that because I hated the activity. I thought it was boring as hell to kind of just literally kill Duriel for 2.5 3 hours straight. I just would not do it. There's actually huge power, scaling and power. You go right through the sweet spot of fighting bosses in 2 seconds. Ironically enough, Diablo 3 had the exact same problem, right? Takes you forever, until you get your 6-piece set. And the moment you get your 6-piece, everything from like Torment, anything below Torment 16 is like now irrelevant at that point. The moment you get your 6-piece, right? The power jump is just insane. Appreciate the follow. Zero. What were you gonna say, Ava?
No, I was gonna say I'm gonna hop off and fix this calc for you guys so that we can theorycraft more.
You're awesome.
All right, stream. Have a nice evening. Take care of Diane Matthias.
I see it, Ava. I'm
gonna go eat something too.
Yeah, I'm actually gonna head out pretty soon myself. I mean, at this point now I have something to do. More so with the victimized stuff, but I mean, yeah.
I'm curious about victimize, even for the Azarath builds.
Yeah. Yeah. I have a pen shot, maybe. Actually.
Yeah, you're proccing it on every hit, like the 200%. Yeah. Obviously,
unless the ICD.
Now that keep in mind that 200% is still like, I mean, even when it was 300%, it was like ridiculously bad. So like you're just basically counting on the 75% basically.
No, I kind of disagree because you do generic scaling only for Azarath.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't actually think it's gonna be.
But even I guess
not great.
Even when I did generic scaling on or just generic scaling on PTR with the basic builds, it was like horrendous.
Actually, now when I think about it, Azarath does 48,000 damage, like 48k base, and Azarath, sorry, 48k because it kills with attack speed.
Okay.
And then Victimize is 200.
It doesn't show. Yeah, the tooltip. Sorry, the Victimize is roughly 1k because you take the weapon damage times the 200%.
Yeah, so you see, yeah, it's just
So it's 48 times less damage with Azure Wrath than 48 times more damage with Azure Wrath than Victimize. But
yeah.
Azure Wrath is single target, whereas Victimize is
Yeah. I mean,
not. So it's
it
not,
should still count for at least a 5% increase in damage.
Yeah, I mean,
There's
that's the
there's
case,
that optimism right there. It's like, give me
but
that
if that's the case, then
5%.
it's still best in slot.
Yeah,
I guess
I
fair.
do think
Okay,
that
that's fair.
the problem would be if the ICD is long enough so that when you're shooting, you don't get a debuff on all the targets. It's going to be a decrease over running close quarters combat. But that's the only thing.
But surely you can at least proc it once a second.
But Victimize?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, no,
So then
you
it's
could proc it.
permanently up.
No, I mean you could proc it 4 times a second.
Yeah.
It's not that it's permanently up. So here's the problem. Let's say you have the main benefit of doing damage with pen shot is that it covers the entire screen, right? But if you're proccing all of your 4 hits on the first 3 enemies you see in front of you, then none of the AoE on the sides are going to get hit by Victimize at all, right? So the damage is going to be increased in the center where you get your first procs, and then the sides are not going to be affected at all by Victimize. So the question is the focus AoE where you're shooting gonna be increased by enough so that the loss of damage on the sides is gonna be relevant?
I mean, I'm running like Godslayer Crown, Cry Rune, like the mobs are in 1 pixel, so I'm pretty sure they will be hit by everything. But,
yeah, if that's the case, then then it's fine.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too for that. Zara says, what are people using Azeroth and Rogue builds for? Like the proc is actually, like the Azeroth proc is actually, like does enough damage to be a build. Believe it or not. On
It's
Rogue.
also looking like our strongest build in Season 9.
Yeah. Which is basically like, I don't really know how I feel about the Azeroth things, considering that like, honestly, I really think I think Andy's was like a very like, you know, I don't say a rogue thing, but like that was cool for us. Like even if I didn't care too much about, you know, or too much for Andy's, like it just kind of sucks to kind of like get rid of Andy's, and then but Azeroth is now the thing. I just feel like it's just a poor man's Andy's, for lack of a better word. You know what I mean? Like, which is technically what Victimize was at one point too. It was also it was just Andy's as well, but still bad ish.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I mean, yeah, Azeroth is just Andy's that doesn't proc poison, that doesn't do a dot. Not nearly as much fun as Andy's, but sure, it works. It's effective. It's our strongest, or one of our strongest, if not the strongest rogue thing we have. So that is the state right now, Zario. But what? Appreciate the sub. I don't know if I called you out there. D3 Revenge of the Cookie Cutter.
All right. I'll see you guys later.
All right, David. See you, man. All right, chat. I'm gonna go ahead and head out to myself. So I'm trying to think about what I'm gonna do for tonight. I was thinking about if I was gonna stream tonight or not. I may or may not. Just depends. If I do, or when I stream this weekend, it's literally all build guy stuff. Just letting you guys know, there's no gameplay, no killing anything, no like anything other than like me working on WordPress backend or planners all weekend. So just want to put that out there for those who like seeing planner stuff, or you know, that kind of whatever. Obviously you guys can't see the WordPress backend stuff, but you know, I'll have the planners up for you to look at. But for those who might kind of want to see what I'm going to be trying to do with Victimize or whatever, you can be here for that. Casual conversation too as well. I have a lot of homework to do this weekend. Yeah. So I was actually kind of setting my mindset to actually not do as much this weekend, because I didn't think anything was going to change. So I was like, oh, this is going to be pretty easy weekend, because a lot of things are just going to be what it was before. kind of thing. Even though I wanted changes, like I wanted things to change, but I was gonna be bored out of my mind with not much to do, right? But now I'm like kind of interested in what victimize, how that's gonna feel and play out, and things I can do with it. But it also means a lot more work on my end, so I'm gonna have a really busy busy weekend.
A blessing and a curse.
Yes. Let's go to can I actually send you guys a Mippy? He's probably gonna be on for this, so we'll go. Let's see. Oh, but he is we did a fourth, by the way.
Oh yeah. Where do we find a fourth?
I don't know. That's a good question. Do you want to try to keep? There's because we gotta sign up for that thing that people don't know about yet. So yeah, but we need a fourth. So
has to be a rogue, right?
Preferably. Actually, Picha, are you playing on launch? Season launch? Do you play on season launch, or are you usually at work? No, you're not at work at the time. No, you're not at work during season launch, are you? Because it's like nighttime for you. Can it proc enough to be affected? TB can proc enough to be affected? Yeah, it can. We actually did it on PTR, believe it or not. TB can do it. As crazy as that seemed, like it wouldn't, due to the lucky hit, or them getting lucky hit on TB and things, it still does really well with Azure. I didn't personally test it, but it was something that Ava did. Anyhow, enjoy Mippy. Also, I'm on leave, but my family's coming over that weekend through the weekend. It's on Tuesday though, right? We're just asking for like Tuesday. I think I already rated it out already. Yep, I did. All right, we'll see you guys. See you guys later.